All right, we'd like to welcome everyone to our city council, especially all those who are here in person. We love seeing people come, and those out in TV land, so thank you. I've asked Councilman Gordon to give us an invocation.
Our Father in heaven, we're thankful this day for the opportunity that we have to be together and to discuss the wonderful city of Spanish Fork, and we pray that as we do so, we will be able to collaborate and gain a better understanding of the needs and the things that are going well and the things that need improvement. We especially ask for a blessing upon the first responders, our women and men who serve on the ambulance and the fire and the police department. Please bless them and their families that they will be safe. Also pray for our military and all of their capacity, as well as the rest of our leaders locally and around the state and around the country. We're thankful for all the many blessings that we have, and this we say in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. I've asked Councilman Argyle to lead us in the pledge.
Yeah, rise. Repeat the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay. Let's move to public comments. Let me just say, if you're here to talk about a particular public hearing, hold your thoughts till then and we'll hear you then. But anyone that would like to address the mayor and the city council on any other issues, you're sure welcome to come up and talk to us. All right, seeing none, we'll go to council comments. Councilman Scobes.
Mayor, I have nothing to report at this time.
All right, Councilman Mendenhall.
Thank you, Mayor. Turn that off. First, I would like to invite up our Chamber Director, Heather Yao, to give us a Chamber minute. Many great things going on in the Chamber, but they're in full on farmers market season, which I'm sure she'll mention, but lots of other things too.
Yeah, so the farmers market is in full swing. So we're excited. We're definitely spread out. We want to encourage everybody to follow the guidelines that it is a one-way route. So just remember that when you go to the farmers market, just to kind of help keep the social distancing for that. Also, the Chamber is starting a new series starting in September. It's called the Business Series. It's some online meetings. They'll be once a week, every Wednesday at 4 p.m. It's just via Zoom. And each week there will be a new topic. So there will be like marketing, leadership, business today, and now I can't remember the other one. So, but those are each week, every Wednesday. So our business of the month for September is Glen Ray's Corn Maze. That will begin, we're doing that this Thursday at noon out there at their maze that they are getting set up. They're not quite open yet, but on the 16th, we are doing the scholarship golf tournament with the Rotary Club. So we've had to postpone that from May. So that's taking place on the 16th. It will look a little bit different this year, but it should still be pretty fun. And then lastly, we have our new networking luncheon on the 17th. That will be held at the Veterans Memorial Building. So that's all I have.
Our August Business of the Month, or excuse me, was that Business of the Month for Walker?
Yeah.
So Walker Funeral Home in town. And great people, great members of the Chamber of Commerce, and we appreciate the good that they are to our community. A couple of other committees, Mayor, that I was involved in this last week. I sent a picture to Nick. Nick, maybe if you can bring that up, but we had a Rotary meeting out in the North Park area and had a great speaker that President Luke Marvin is the president for this year, and we socially distanced and had it outside. And while the speaker was coming up to speak, I kind of just glanced over as I was talking to another Rotarian and kind of just caught this picture. It just spoke to me of just the mayor's, I call it the mayor's motto. It's Spanish Fork's motto, but the mayor made sure that pride and progress is back in Spanish Fork in everything you see. And this park, this area of the park, you can know behind Costco and in that area has a great water feature that everybody enjoys, and a lot of people on hot summer days can come and have a good time. But then just a week before that, we cut the ribbon at the Hampton Inn across the street there, across the freeway. And I just thought that this captured kind of the feeling that I had that day of pride and progress. That was a tough, a heavy lift for many people that were involved in reconfiguring that area. The mayor's well aware of that, and his staff as well, Kier as well, but a tough thing when you're talking about reconfiguring a park and commercial that came in that area that we all enjoy, that many people out of our area enjoy, and what's come of it is a beautiful place that a lot of people enjoy, not just the Rotarians on a day where they need to be outside and have their meeting, but a lot of kids and families. And then the hotel represents some level of progress that enough people hotel built here in Spanish Fork, which is just so cool to see and a beautiful addition to the city. So that's my Rotary Minute. The Rotarians are involved in what's coming up with our All Abilities Park ribbon cutting, helping the city fill some cotton candy bags and be involved. I appreciate all the good volunteers that meet and figure out ways every single week to better our community there in Rotary. And applications are open, so if you want to join Rotary, please do it. It's a great place with great people. Next meeting I had was with the League of Cities and Towns in our Love, Listen, and Lead. What do we call that, Seth? Task force. Task force. Seth and I are part of that. Met last week virtually with city council members, mayors, and police chiefs from all over the state of Utah, not just the Wasatch Front, but all over the state of Utah, as well as folks that represent the Utah chapters of the NAACP, Black Lives Matter, other people that you're seeing in the public square that are talking about issues that they're passionate about. A great couple hours of meeting and really just listening to people's concerns as an elected official, but also from the League of Cities and Towns, and great to see chiefs counterparts in the respective cities that respect him, and every time I talk to them, whether it's virtually or in person, just say how great of a chief we have in Spanish Fork, and what we're doing with our law enforcement. So great meeting. We're again in the listening phase of that to see what recommendations, how local elected officials and cities can be part of the solution of helping our communities heal in places where they feel like maybe they're not heard. So I'll keep updating on those meetings, Mayor. They happen every week or every couple of weeks, and we'll just keep updating as the legislature is looking towards us as local elected officials to see about recommendations that they're looking for legislation. The only other part that I wanted to bring up, and I know other people will bring this up, but the Parks and Rec Department has quite the upcoming couple of weeks of cutting a ribbon and opening the All Abilities Park. I'm just so excited to see what that means to our community, and Dale and his department, the good work of managing a pandemic and having kids be able to play soccer and baseball and football and everything else that is healthy for our community, and then on top of it managing the opening of such a blessing that's going to be for our community. I'm just excited to see all of you there and the whole community kudos again to the management of that and seeing it through, along with the generous family, the generous people that was the impetus of that to make it possible for our community to be blessed for decades and decades to come. So that's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. Councilman Gordon.
Saturday at the farmers market, we were getting close to the end of it when I got a phone call from our transfer station director, and our transfer station was on fire over in Springville. And it was not a good phone call. We had a hot load come in that started on the south end of the building, and all of the member cities' fire departments responded, including one that's not. Payson was there, which is to name all those: Provo, Springville, Spanish, Mapleton, Salem. All of those fire departments were there, and we're happy to report that we were able to get that fire out with a very little damage. Really, we lost a couple of goats, which moved the trailers around, but our biggest concern was the compactors at the transfer station. One thing that's important to note is currently our transfer station on Saturdays has been incredibly busy as a result of the COVID-19. Just more than double the amount of people bringing in trash and things. And so commend all of the fire departments and all of those first responders for helping out, as well as our transfer station staff, which include some great residents of Spanish Fork. And so it was a great thing to get a text on Sunday that the landfill was able to open for us, to be able to get all the garbage out there and get things cleaned up. And now we're working through the insurance for the yard goats and things. But anyway, so tragedy diverted there. Speaking of fire departments, if you haven't driven up Canyon Road recently, I invite you to do so and look at the new fire station that is up on the east bench, and as we'll be cutting a ribbon on that in a couple of weeks, and just commend everybody that's put so much effort into the planning and the building of that new facility that'll serve the great people of Spanish Fork for a long time. That's all I have, Mayor. For a long time. That's all I have, Mayor.
Councilman Argyle.
I don't have anything at this time, Mayor. Thank you.
All right. Councilmember Babb.
Okay, I wanted to let everybody know that last night we called someone for our new Fiesta Days chairman for 21, 22, and 23. We stopped by and surprised Mark and Mindy Warner. If you know them, they're fabulous residents here in Spanish Fork. In fact, because we did not hold a grand parade this year, they held their own neighborhood parade where they had Miss Spanish Fork, Miss Utah, I think Mayor Anderson was there, and Steve Wilson, and a lot of kids in the neighborhood, and they just had a local parade. And so they're really involved in our community, and we look forward to working with them the next couple of years with Fiesta Days. And then I just wanted to read a quick email, let me get down to it, that I received this week. They were emailing me about something else, and then they added, "We want to give a shout out to a city employee. We don't know her name, but she is a young lady who works at the sports park. We were at a soccer game for our grandson with 14 grandchildren. We spend a lot of time at our beautiful recreational facilities. We noticed this young woman drive up on the city rec vehicle and approach a lady sitting near us who had a dog. She had a smile on her face as she described the dog ordinance and very pleasantly made sure this patron knew that dogs were not allowed in the park. It was really nice to see a great example of positive customer service while still enforcing city ordinances. Many don't know that although dogs can be on the trail on a leash, they aren't allowed in the park. As one walks, bikes, or runs almost every day on the river trail, I end up cleaning up after many dogs whose owners don't clean up after them. I'm happy to say that I haven't had to do that in the park." So I thought that was good feedback, Dell, if you can pass that along. I don't know who that would be, maybe you do. So that's all I have.
Great. Well, there you go. I've just got one thing I'd like to make a comment. Earlier this week, three of our police officers responded to a call where an individual had a firearm. that could have gone really ugly, but our police officers handled that in a professional manner and calmed that issue down. The guy gave up his weapon, and they never had to fire any of their weapons. So I just want to let our police force know that we appreciate the way they handle situations professionally, and also it's a tough job out there. You know, they put their lives in harm's way every day, even here in Spanish Fork. So it's I just want to let Chief Adams know how much we appreciate those 3 officers and all our police force. So I just wanted to shout out to them. Okay, let's go to Spanish Fork 101, Utah Valley Visioning.
Thanks for having me. My name is Ari Bruning. I'm the President and CEO of Envision Utah, and we've been helping facilitate the Valley Visioning effort, and appreciate you giving me a little bit of time to give you an update on it. We're close to releasing a vision this fall, and we wanted to make sure that the various city councils were aware of it, and so if you got questions from the public, you knew how to answer them and so on, and we're also still looking for feedback. So with that, this is an effort that's sponsored by all of the chambers in Utah County, including Heather, thank you, and working with the universities as well. And we at Envision Utah have been lending our expertise to help facilitate it. But it's a vision by those in Utah County for those in Utah County, and the intent is to look at the projected growth for Utah County. So in 2050, you're projected to have twice as many people as today. So 1.2 million people. That's roughly the population of Salt Lake County in 2050. And the goal is to do it better than Salt Lake County did. Most of the growth is actually our own kids and grandkids. So I have 4 kids, it's my fault. And so what we did is we did a 3-phase process here. The first phase was listening. I spent a fair amount of time listening to people from Utah County. What are the issues that are of concern to them, and what ideas did they have for how to accommodate that growth? So we had a survey online that almost 3,000 people took. We held workshops throughout Utah County, including one here in Spanish Fork. And we took all that information and use that to, first of all, decide what issues to tackle. So this is the results from the survey about which issues were most important to people. And you can see the top issues there: water, transportation, air pollution, education, and so on. And so we took those top issues and we said, let's tackle these issues, let's put groups together around them. So we put together 6 priority working groups to tackle the top 6 topics of people from Utah County to help understand what the choices were and the implications of those choices. And we also, at our various workshops, we had people around tables and we asked them to put stickers on maps to tell us how they would accommodate the growth. And we analyzed those to look at themes as we put together different options for the future. Digitized them, and these are heat maps that we put together so you can see where people put different kinds of development, where they put city centers and quarter-acre lots and so forth, where they put roads, where they put transit. Interesting theme here: a lot of roads on the west side, a lot of transit on the east side, which was interesting. Then we took all that, took it to those the working groups, the 6 working groups, and they helped us put together some scenarios for the year 2050. And then we worked with Mountain Land Association of Governments and Central Utah Water Conservancy District to model the implications of those scenarios, took them to the public in a survey, and over 11,000 people weighed in. And then we also did a random sample survey just to make sure we didn't get 11,000 weirdos who didn't represent the county. And I want to really quickly go through what the 5 scenarios were here. So scenario A, we said, what if we just continue to grow like we have the last 20 years through 2050? What does that look like? And then scenario B, we saw a number of people as they put together these maps for the growth who did a lot of city centers. They said, let's put a lot of the growth in areas where you have housing, jobs, shopping all close together, served by good transportation. So that was our center scenario. We also saw a lot of maps that said, there's a lot of good ag land in the south part of the county. Let's not grow there. Let's grow west instead, towards Eagle Mountain. So that was scenario C. We said, well, if we're going to do that, we better do one where we grow south rather than west. So that was scenario D. And then scenario E was kind of the let's grow up rather than out scenario. Let's fill in our existing urban areas and model what that looks like. So we have some visualizations that we put together of what those look like. If you look at the maps on the right, the pale yellow is existing development, and then the kind of orange color is the new development by 2050. So this is the scenario. We grow how we have the last 20 years. And what'll jump out at you the most here is just how much land do we use? What's the footprint of the land we use? So that's scenario A. Scenario B is, again, we grow a little bit more in centers. So it uses a bit less land. Scenario C, we grow west. So you can see not a lot of growth in the south part of the county, but a lot out by Eagle Mountain. The flip side, a lot of growth in the south. And then this is the urban infill scenario. So kind of grow up rather than out, the smallest footprint for development. So we put those together, modeled them, asked people which way they wanted to grow. The idea wasn't to say we're going to pick one of these scenarios and that's how we're going to grow. It was to find out what was motivating people, what they liked best for transportation, for water, for air quality, and so on. And these are the results just for the, based off basically those maps that you saw. What did people think we ought to do in terms of where and how we grow? So in the blue there is the 11,000 people who went online. The red's the random sample. Luckily, the results are pretty similar. It's interesting, not a lot of people chose to say we want to grow how we've been growing the last 20 years. And I don't think that's an indictment of how we've been growing. I think it's just a recognition that when you're going to grow to more than 1 million people, maybe you need to think about something a little differently. A lot of people like the center scenario. A lot of people said grow west. Not very many said grow south. And then a fair amount chose the urban infill scenario. And it's interesting, I don't have the slide in here, but if you, I can go back to that. If you cut the results by where people live, people in Eagle Mountain were pretty comfortable with that scenario where you grow a lot in Eagle Mountain. People in the South County, not very comfortable with that scenario D where you grow south. So people weren't just saying grow somewhere else, right? Some people were okay with growth where they were. So we took all our survey results. I'm not going to show you what people said for water and air quality and all that. If you're interested, we have all that data. But took that back to our working groups, and we've been working on putting together a vision to release this fall. These are the overall goals of what people said they wanted for Utah County. Convenient transportation choices, so you can get around, whether that's by a car or walking or biking or taking a train or a bus, whatever it is. Housing options that match the market. Open space and recreation opportunities. They want to support local agriculture. They don't want to see that to go away. Want to manage water wisely, have a well-educated population, and have clean air. So the question then is, how do you do that, right? So we also have been working with those working groups to come up with some goals and strategies for each one of these. And I won't go through all that tonight, but that's all available to you too if you want to look through it and give us any feedback. But this will be released, looks like October. We're going to have an event where we release it. And it looks like we're going to be able to get the governor to come speak. So with that, I think that's my last slide. Oh. We also have the vision will include a map. Since a lot of people supported the centers, we've been working with the various city staffs to identify where those centers might go. And obviously this is kind of a cartoonish map, intentionally so, but coordinated with MAG's transportation plan to have the land use and the transportation work together so that everything functions well. So with that was my last slide. So I'll let you ask questions, shoot arrows, whatever you want to do. So.
Anybody have any questions? If not, we'll look forward to when you present that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, consent items, you need to remove E on the consent items. We need to take that off.
Motion to approve the consent items with the removal
Removal of item E.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilmember Mendenhall. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. All right, public hearing, ordinance Z07-20, changing the zoning designation, amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork for the Del Monte zone change.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. I'm going to reference that image up there for just a minute, the part of it that we have in the upper right-hand corner there. The area that's shaded in yellow is the property that we're talking about tonight. It's 6 acres located just south of the American Leadership Academy on Del Monte Road. The property is currently general plan mixed use, and the proposal in part involves changing the existing zoning, which is industrial 2, to R3. The R3 zone is consistent with that mixed use general plan designation. The other part of the proposal that's before you tonight is a proposed preliminary plat for a master plan development. The version that we are looking at here, I think, is now obsolete. I understand that the applicant has a revised version that he'll present here in just a minute. But just to speak to this for a second, with this here, the proposal contains 65 townhomes, again on just under 6 acres actually, so that's a density of just under 11 homes per acre. As proposed here, the project does exceed the city's parking requirements and otherwise meets the requirements that we have for master plan developments in the R3 zone. Both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission have reviewed this particular proposal here that we're looking at, and the Development Review Committee did recommend that it be approved. That recommendation is based, at least in part, on a proposed condition, which would involve the applicant providing funding to make some transportation improvements in the area. And that being said, the Planning Commission, relative to both the proposed zone change and the preliminary plat, have recommended that the proposals be denied. So that being said, like I mentioned, the applicant has an updated layout for the project, an updated plat. And unless you have any questions for me, I think it'd probably be great to turn things over to him. Thanks.
We might have some questions later.
Thank you. Appreciate being here. And just a little bit about us, Arrive Homes.
State your name.
My name is Dean Ingram with Arrive Homes. A lot of you know about Arrive Homes, but just for those who may not, Arrive Homes is a local business here in Spanish Fork. We employ, I think we're up to a little over 70 employees now, and are one of the largest builders. I think we control about 25% of the marketplace in South County, which is a pretty high percentage. But we love building down here, and I'm local, live down this way, and it's a great area. A little bit about this project. So these concepts are going to change. I've had to add because we've made some changes. This is the original, but you'll see some add-ons. So those don't matter as much. So part of it, our goal is to build a really upscale, nice product, whether it's our single family or our multifamily, or even, as you probably some of you have seen, our 55 and older. I don't know if many of you have been able to go over and look at the Annie's Acres. I think it's turned out really, really nice. It's going to be a great 55 and older, I should call it active adult community. And here's some of the elevations. I'll get to that in a minute. I wanted to focus on this. One of the things that we do with these plans, we've built this in some other locations, but you'll see that the garage is basically like a 2.5 car garage, which has been extremely popular because it leaves room to bring bikes and other things inside the garage and still have your 2 parking stalls, which usually is a big deal in townhomes. A lot of times they put stuff in their garage and you can only park 1 car in there. So it's actually, it's a great, great design that's been super popular. Here's some of the elements that we have on this. You'll see that it's our highest quality. There's no stucco. It's all hardy board. It's got a lot of design features, a lot of relief. The wall that would be along the one side, the back side, will be a masonry wall, and then you'll see some spots where we'll have some wrought iron fencing too, as part of the project also. Again, here's some of those elements that we were talking about that are built into these. I'll keep going here. I'll try to make it somewhat quick. Will be the playground open space. It's hard to figure out what to put in the open space here because we're literally right around the corner from about all the things you could possibly want to do outdoor-wise and with kids-wise. So we thought a little pavilion and playground just for quick access to families would be probably the most appropriate. There's a kind of a streetscape, artist rendering of that. I think this is that a drone video? I don't know if that'll play through or not. I don't think it necessarily. So this we'll see kind of the layout of what's around it. That's again is the old layout. You'll see a new updated one here in a minute. That's the current status of the site. I think I could probably move this on. You've probably seen enough of that. There you go. So that is the older layout there. Like I said, Spanish Fork is one of our areas that we really thrive in and work well with the city here. So we love developing here. This is where we'll get into maybe kind of the history. So this project's been being worked on for, it's probably pushing close to a year and a half, I think. We've had multiple neighborhood meetings. As far as the full neighborhood, I think at least 3. A couple of those were and I've got to compliment your staff, were attended by staff, and one of them was attended by probably every key person. I know city manager, both city planner and assistant city planner, I guess, or I don't know what you call some of these guys, but 2 or 3 of your engineers, including your head engineer. It was just really, and that was on a Monday evening, and they probably had better things to do, and it just shows that they care both about the residents and also about local home builders that are working with them constantly on trying to find the best fit and the best product and turn out what's going to be a nice thing for the city and for the neighborhood. So I just have to compliment them. But anyways, we had 3 city meetings, and the main issues that came up in this is, is it the right place for it? And some of their concerns, their biggest, the number one concern, I think I can speak for maybe some of you, maybe all, but is safety of their children. And there was a few things that hit with that. One is their kids walk to Riverview, and also I'm sure some of them walk to American Leadership Academy also. But also the traffic that it might generate in the neighborhood of cars. This is more than the 10 or 15 homes that might fit as far as what they currently have, right? So I think it's a little overwhelming to see that there's quite a few units in this that could generate traffic that would cause concern for the safety of their children. So some of the things that we did, and then another thing was home values. What will it do to that? And so some of the things that we tried to do, and we'll go through this, is to address those issues. one of the things that one meeting that had a lot of people, we hired the traffic engineer, is the same one the city hired to evaluate the road in front of ALA and the traffic going in and out. It's been a problem for a while. I think they came up with all that, but then the funding wouldn't happen and the school wouldn't participate in helping out at all. And it's a pretty expensive fix. I'll show you in a minute what that looks like, but it's a roundabout, it's mediums, and it's keeping traffic going one way and keeping it flowing, so you don't have, you have a better flow and you're sending people one way and not another in order to keep the best possible situation. And also, it'll be a road widening and a trail system, different things like that. But we'll go over that in a second. So here's what the traffic study came up with, and then we hired the same traffic consultant to add our project to it and to give recommendations and data on that, I guess. But you can see, I don't know if does that work? Oh, I'm pushing the wrong button probably, huh? I figured out now. Whoa, that's kind of cool. Will it work that way too? I'm going to go over here. I'm going to go right there. So you can see the roundabout, and basically what they're trying to do, and there's some mediums in here, is they're closing the first lane right here where you normally would enter, and they moved it further away, and they're filling in two lanes coming in to go around, and then two more here to go around for the high school. It allows you to stack and stage cars a lot further, because that's one of the issues you have with charter schools is people aren't necessarily living right there, so most people have to drive their kids there, and so they ended up they come early to pick them up. Usually mornings is probably a shorter time of congestion. Afternoons are probably a little rougher, I would imagine. I guess the residents would be able to address that a little bit more, just because moms will come and want to wait. They get there a little early, or dads. I shouldn't. It could be either one. But anyway, so I think that's what they came up with as the best solution for this. So we would be participating in that. I was able to get ourselves would donate towards that. The current landowner and the school also. So there's 3 different parties that would help solve this as being one of the big issues. That's for the area, whether this goes in or not. Honestly, I'm sure this is planned to go in either way. And then there's a vicinity map. This does have the new layout. So one of the issues so I met, like I said, with the whole group multiple times, and then actually some of the guys that were there that were pretty involved in all this reached out to me, wanted to meet with me, and they gave me their concerns even on a bigger scale. First it was 4, and then there was 5 that we talked and just tried to figure out what we can do, and we made some changes with it. You'll see our density count we changed was one of the suggestions that could help. And there was a lot of other things put on the table. I just don't, there are things that the city can't do. So we tried to flesh all those out. I don't believe, one of them was, closed down. Let's see if I can get this to work. Oops, I keep hitting the wrong button, that's all. To try to limit this road, because I think the fear is that traffic pulls through here and then drives down this neighborhood. And this is, and I've been down there. It's a legitimate concern. There's lots of kids there. I actually have 2 employees that live in the neighborhood right here. I have 2 subcontractors that I know of also that live in the neighborhood. So, so I know I hear the concerns. I kind of know them from talking to those guys, along with the neighbors too. There are kids there. So, a couple of the ideas, some of those ideas just the city won't do, right? They won't close this road off. And I don't believe, they wanted me to suggest, can we come out on Del Monte instead of coming out on this street right here? Being a collector road, I don't think that's on the table, but I'm more than willing to work with engineering on whatever comes up to do the best I can to limit the traffic and different things that cause a concern of the neighbors with safety. The other thing that could happen is that I'd be more than happy to participate. I don't know the process to this, but to put a couple stop signs in here. People go the path of least resistance, and if you make it even more so, some of the turns and corners should keep a lot of people from going that way. There'll still be some, that could possibly go. And there's probably school traffic right now that goes that way. So maybe a stop sign. There are currently no stop signs coming in and out of that on any of those streets in there. That may deter people also, I think could be a good idea. I think one of the main concerns, well, maybe I'll bring that up in a little bit. The other thing that we're doing that will help the safety also is, I think this is on this. I think there's a slide. So there's plans to widen Del Monte Road, obviously, considerably. A 10-foot wide walking trail along Del Monte. We would be putting in all of that in front of our project right there. And then we've been working with, you got a young lady at the city that kind of handles traffic stuff. She's been awesome. She's really good at what she does, I think. She's been reaching out to Nebo and kind of trying to get the safe school route. I'll show you what they've kind of come up with, because there's not been a safe school route developed for this area yet. And so we've kind of initiated that to help out also to make sure that we address that there's a safe way for kids to walk to school. And there you can see the road widening, how much that widens compared to the current road, and that's the widening we'll be putting on that. So I believe there's enough for traffic both ways, and a turn lane also is what the plan would be, as far as I know. There's that safe school route that they've come up with to get to Riverview. And basically they're doing, oops, again, I hit the wrong button. They're coming along here because this will be a 10-foot trail all the way down Del Monte. And then this is the school route that they probably are currently on, but this would be the safe school route that probably could petition for a crossing guard that may be needed. It probably is needed right now, because I can't imagine what it's like for ALA traffic to be coming into the school and then kids trying to walk to Riverview. It's probably the same time, I would imagine, but I think some of the residents can probably address that better than I can. So this is the original slide. So parking was a big issue, and so we took the original, and then we kept changing it. The original was actually 67 units, but I got rid of that pretty quick after our first neighborhood meeting. Sorry, I don't need that. Let me move on to the next slide here. So this is with the original layout that we first did. You had the total parking provided. So basically you can see there that, and I don't need to spend a lot of time because we're going to go to the latest one anyways, but there was a total of 235 stalls provided. That would count, some of these had driveways and some did not. And so counting the driveway as 2, the garage as 2, and then all the additional, those circles are all additional parking for visitors. And so those are the additional ones. You can see there was 41 additional stalls. The requirement is 163 per your city code. There's an extra 72 on that one. And then we moved to this one. And some of this was getting response from the neighbors and the engineers and stuff, but we changed that again and got to 83 additional stalls. And this was the last one we did before we took it to the Planning Commission. We had an additional 87 stalls. The latest and greatest now, talking to the neighbors, one of the concerns with the is that some of those don't have the driveways. So they asked, can you try to get driveways on all of them? And so I was able to change the layout. We took some units out and was able to do that with this layout. So every unit now has a driveway. So now you can see the parking totals there and the additional parking. There's probably some room for some more additional parking if needs be, but it seems like we're probably pretty sufficient now. Total parking provided is 257 stalls. The required parking is 135 for 54 units. And we've got an extra 122 parking stalls for parking ability to make sure that there's no overflow parking into the neighborhood. That was a big concern. They've already dealing with, and I feel for them, the technology school. Kids kind of seem like they park a little bit all over the place. I do think they changed where they weren't requiring permits and ticketing. I don't know. I think something changed there, but that's obviously not me. But and I know they have to deal with that. And then there is some parking for a home business too that probably takes up some of that too. But so as far as I'm going to talk a little bit about our other project we did in Traverse Mountain. It's pretty much identical to this. It's a same product, and it's sitting in the middle of an upscale community. And so that's one of the things we'll talk about in a little bit. So the current zone this is the I-2 zone. These are the different things you can put in there. Not too many are very appealing to both, probably for a business that wanted to go in there, obviously, or for the neighborhood, and especially the school would be a big issue for that too. The mixed use, you can see the different uses there. R3 is the lowest residential impacted use that can be there. R4 is obviously stacked, and R5 would be probably more apartments, I believe. And then there's some commercial office and different kind of office stuff. I think one thing, can I go backwards? One thing to realize too, when you're dealing with the school, and also even with the neighborhood, if a business ends up going there, it's hard to get to know the business, right? I mean, they're running a business and they're going to, run it how they want to, and you're going to have cars come and go, and you don't know who those people are. The one good thing about this being residential is you know who the people are. They're going to be the people in your neighborhood. They're going to be the people going to the local congregation possibly, and you're going to get to know them, and it's a little easier to confront any issues you may have possibly with them than it is to try to tackle a business that is trying to run a business. So I do think that makes it a better choice to go residential than anything else. I think that, so this will be the Mountain Point. Will that play also? Yep. So it's very similar. There is a school next door, literally right across the street. You'll see that pop up. There's at the bottom of the screen, that's the school you'll see coming in. To the, we'll see what that, there's a church right next, that's part of it, that's next to it too, which is very similar to here, just around the corner. There's also the neighborhood you can see up above to the right. Most of those homes are in the, probably anywhere from 7-something to $1 million plus, or what that value is up there. And then I thought this would be important to go over. So I took both of my daughters and their husbands live up in this neighborhood up here, although I guess one moved. I'm a little old this week because I became a grandfather this week, and so she moved closer to mom so mom can help. But anyways, I did go and do a who actually lives there. And you can see real estate agents, nurses, these are the actual people who live in those mountain points. Insurance company CEO, engineers, interior designers, tech sales, tech professionals, pharmacists, biotech accountant, police officers, teachers, special needs counselor is there, mortgage officer, BYU athletic, somebody involved in the athletic department, lawyers, there's digital marketers, entrepreneur, master students. Things have changed. There's a lot of people, these professionals that actually want they want to enjoy their weekends and not do yard work, and they're just into that a little bit more. And we're seeing a big change in that. And we're trying to provide the nicest thing we can. And it does we seem to attract that clientele because it's hard to find. It's hard to find somebody that'll put the same materials and the same effort that we do in our semi-custom, custom homes that we do. We do the exact same workmanship in those as we do in these. So it's hard to find that, and so we are one that people tend to, in these professions, tend to want to be in because they are looking for something nicer. They're not necessarily looking for the most affordable. And I think that's the end of the thing. Just to end on, I definitely appreciate, it's great having a neighborhood that cares, and I totally respect that. They have been extremely involved, and which is not a bad thing. I do want to say that I love developing in Spanish Fork. One of the things that makes Spanish Fork one of the best cities for us to build in and run our business here is you know what you're going to get typically, and you have a great staff. You run a great city. The amenities are amazing. It's just an incredible draw for people who want to live here. And what's nice for us is we know typically if there's a zoning that we know exactly what we can do with that zoning. You have an averaging number, and I plug that averaging number in, and I do my layout how I want to that fits for my product, and it's really smooth going through. And typically we've always found, and this one's a little tough. It has a current zone that's not very good for the area. It's general plan, which that general plan came in 2010. So it's not that old. Basically at the start of, probably the start of most of these developments, I know I came out, the two developments, I've done 2 of the 3 developments, well 2 of the 4 developments I guess that surround this. And I know ours was after that, but that general plan was placed in 2010. And typically with the city, we know when we have a general plan that we have something that's workable because you guys have usually put a lot of thought into those. I don't know if that's the case here. I know that there's probably the residents would like to see that general plan change, and I get that. They live there, right? So I just love the consideration, and we'd love to do this project. I think we've made a lot of concessions by every time we had something come up. And one of the things the planning commission, one of the planning commissioners, and it was a 2-3 vote, but one said it didn't change enough, and the unit count. And so we met with some neighbors and dropped that down considerably, about as far as we can go and still participate and help out with the things that need to happen in the area. And we've tried to address all of it. We've, upped the quality and just try to do as much as we can to address those issues. And thank you I know this is a little bit long, but I just appreciate working in Spanish Fork City. No matter what happens with this one, we just love being here. So thank you.
Thank you, Dean. Okay, this is a public hearing. Let me put a little of the ground rules here first. We'd love to hear from everyone if you've got a different thing to say. If you're going to each come up and say the same thing over and over again, I'm going to ask you to sit down because we get it. Once you tell us once, we understand traffic's a problem or something else is a problem, safety's a problem. But and if you want to have a spokesman, I'll add extra time. If you want someone to express all your concerns with him, I can do that. We'll give you 6 or 9 minutes. So, and we're not here, this isn't a clap and cheerlead type deal. We want to keep this civil. This is a city council. We want the respect here, and we want to hear you. That's why this meeting is for the citizens, the public. So we'll have a timer. When your time's up, don't think that I'm rude if I stop you in the middle of your sentence, but we're going to keep it here normal. So with that, if everybody's okay with those ground rules, and then when you come up, please state your name and where you live, so we know who we're dealing with and where you're at. So with that, I would entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Argal. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. The time is yours. If I didn't scare you off. Yeah.
I want to first start off by saying I think there's some misconception that we don't want townhomes. Jason Rasmussen, sorry. I live right by ALA. My kids go to the school there. I live right across the street. Yep. And so we appreciate Dean meeting with us. We've talked with him, and we're not against townhomes or the development. I like the growth in Spanish Fork and what we're doing. So I appreciate that and the efforts that you guys make. With that said, you know, he's comparing Lehigh. There was a lot less townhomes up there that he was showing, and you see the filler roads up there are a lot larger than what is in our neighborhood. They're half the size, those ones that he was showing in Lehigh. And the reason I bring that up, I have his Hell's Engineering study, and it was combed over in the planning meeting, and it wasn't really talked about. I don't know if you guys have it and have looked at it, but the 1100 South Del Monte Road that's on the east side right there on the northeast corner, before the townhomes go in, it receives a letter grade C of loss of service during peak hours. Townhome goes in, it drops to a D. And that's the main walking section where kids going to ALA and to Riverview have to cross, and it's receiving a letter grade D. So that wasn't really addressed or taken care of to manage that. And the north exit, the 1100 South Del Monte, their number one access point, receives an F, and I'll read it straight from the report. It says the Del Monte Townhomes access number 1, 1100 South intersection, is anticipated to operate at a failing loss level of service during the morning peak hour with project traffic added due to the existing congestion from the charter school across the street. So as you've heard, our biggest concerns are our children's safety, and I don't think those intersections have been addressed. The south, they're trying to do what they can so they don't come through our neighborhood, I get that, but where they're walking, it's not been taken care of. And as you see a lot of townhomes, cars end up parking on the street, there's less visible for these kids that are walking. So during those peak hours, that's our really scare that we have for our kids' safety. And I don't know if it's our fault or not. A lot of us looked at the zoning around our neighborhood when we built there because we like the quiet neighborhood. Our kids play out in the street every night, and they're very safe. You add a lot of townhomes in there, that safety level goes down. Was it our fault we didn't look at the master general plan? Possibly, but the zoning currently around there didn't have anything for this. And so that's why we built there. So I hope you take that into consideration when you're deciding your vote tonight.
Thank you.
Van Davis, I live on Mill Road. None of the deals that have been made since the day that this whole development in our area, I'm probably one of the oldest residents here, and none of the deals that have been spoken and made have been kept. It's gone from half acre to third acre when Niederhauser snuck it in, and now it's gone, and then Dean, when he first came to do Mielstein Meadows, it went to quarter to fifth acre, and now he wants to go smaller. So my concern is this. They own about 100 acres on my side of the road, which will be developed in the future. When that gets put in, I don't know what the layout's going to be, but if this is allowed, then I'm afraid that they will try and put this density in over there on my side. The egresses for that neighborhood will be substantially, or the numbers will be substantial, which will just add to this problem. And I always say, if there's a problem with something, you shouldn't force a solution, because all the best laid plans of mice and men usually don't work out. The direction of the traffic, all that with the school, nobody's going to listen to rules. They're just going to do what they want. The traffic's really busy on Mill Road. You can sit in my mom's on her porch in the morning, and it's just really busy, and it's just going to get worse. So I say, put a problem child where a problem child will not be a problem. There's lots of ground out there that this development can go into. Second of all, well, I don't know. I don't really have a second of all, but I'm just against it. A little nervous, I guess. But I think deals should be kept instead of reworked every time an opportunity comes.
Thank you.
My name is Nathaniel Goff, and I live on 1513 South Harvest Lane in this community. You know, it's been a long year plus kind of working through this whole process. We've had an opportunity to get to know Dean, and I know it's been a hard battle for him, and I know he's put a lot of time and effort into this. And I also agree that it's a beautiful community. The homes are absolutely beautiful. I think the diversity they would bring would probably add to the overall you know, well-being of the people that live there. I think that's all healthy. I think that's all good. I think that's all positive. I think as I look at it and I evaluate it, the thing that concerns me the most is as you look at kind of where an entrance is, and I actually spoke with Dean about this very thing, on Barley, if you go from Barley out to the freeway, the path of least resistance, as Hell Engineering said that people would take, is really going down the largest road, the widest road. It's 33 feet down Barley to Harvest Lane. Del Monte and Mill Road are maybe, if you're kind of pushing it, around 22. It's over 10 feet wider to go down a residential road than it is to go down one of the arterial roads, and that is by design where traffic should go. In addition to that, one of the big concerns I have is in regards to the path of least resistance. If you're coming out of the entrance that Dean has on Barley, you're going to take a left, you're going to take a right, you're going to hit a stoplight on Del Monte in Arrowhead Trail. You can go right, you're going to hit another stoplight at Arrowhead and Mill Road. People aren't going to go that way. They're just simply not. The traffic from these townhomes will go straight down the path of least resistance, which is going to be Barley and Harvest Lane. It's going to increase exponentially the concern that I have, and I believe many of my neighbors, for the safety of our kids. They're playing the streets every single day of the week, regardless of how many times we tell them to stay out of the road. It's only a matter of time, I fear, until one of those children is struck by a car. And then what? And then what do we do? Right? Well, it was good enough, right? At what cause is the risk too high or too low? Right? I don't think it should impact really any increased risk on any of the community. And again, nothing against Dean. I think Dean is wonderful. I think he's a great guy. I respect him. We've had great discussions with him. I just do not believe this development fits here, and I also am against it. Thank you.
Eric Nielsen, I live in the Quail Hollow development. I've lived in that area 16 years now, and I know that when Chris Thompson had discussed, the issue of traffic out of Riverview, coming up out of Riverview Drive and Riverway, which has not been talked about at all tonight, and to say that it is very difficult and has been very difficult for any traffic, even before this development even goes in, for us to even get out of there. Especially on a hill in the wintertime when there's snow, it's a lot hard. It's really hard to get out of there because you were coming out of a hill. And I know that the city council has said that we can't fix what previous city councils have done or what previous developers have done, but I am a little bit concerned that, obviously this will cause more traffic for us. I know I don't want to keep bandwagon or beating the drum of the traffic, but please consider, that we have a problem even on our side, the Quail Hollow development side. Chris talked about possibly getting UDOT to put a no right-hand turn on Arrowhead Trail onto Del Monte to help us as traffic gets backed up from the ALA traffic to allow us to come and get out. Because when you do finally you get a gap when the green light goes for all southbound traffic, when you try to shoot the gap to get out, you've got now, if you're looking right at all the ALA traffic come down or whatever traffic, you got someone that flies around the corner there because it's a very short, close to that proximity of that intersection that you try to shoot across, next thing you know you're on the brakes and you can't get out. So Chris said there's nothing they can do about that. That's something that happened, when that development was built. Unfortunately, it was just that street that comes out for our area wasn't put in a good spot. I am pro-development, but I say I'm more pro-development on commercial stuff. I think something commercial, a daycare facility would be adequately utilized in that area, especially for LAA. All the students get out of school. You know, the parents can't pick them up. They walk across the street. They go to a daycare facility. I have a hard time believing that having commercial or office space is going to invite people that we don't want in our neighborhood. Because if that's the truth, then we've got people all over in this whole city that's coming into commercial development office space that we don't want. But we do want them. And lastly, we can always make things look really good. You know, you put stucco stone, hardy board, whatever, and we can make things look really nice. But at the end, it just creates a lot more people, a lot more traffic, and my vote would be to be against it. Thank you.
My name is Derek Moody. I'm a recent move-in into the community. I actually don't even know my address. It's fairly recent. I live close to Jason. That doesn't help any of y'all. I'll be very short. I haven't had the opportunity to harass anyone with emails or anything, so I'll just destroy a minute of your time. I haven't seen many people address, just very briefly, what the future plan is as you're trying to look at the congestion that may occur with the traffic and also, again, density. What's going to happen on the west side? You don't have a good picture up there, but on the west side of Mill Road, obviously, I don't know if there's any intention in the next 5 or 10 years for eventually everything on the other side of Mill Road on the west side to eventually be developed, but trends are trends. Over 10, 20 years, it's very likely that a huge mass of land that you can see up there now eventually will be housing, and what's that going to do to add even more congestion? So it seems like even right now we're pushing some of these things to their limit by adding in the high density just on this east side, but no one's mentioned like, okay, what's going to happen when you factor into all the development that may, and it is a may, occur on the west side, which is why I think one of the conclusions that was suggested at the end of the last meeting that we had was to go back and maybe let's relook at the whole city plan. And just because that hasn't gotten much attention, I think if we go back and look at the plan, you can start looking what's going to happen all on the west side. Is this truly zoned the best and most appropriate way? And hopefully if that is a suggestion that that's something that can be done without infringing on the current landowner's rights, obviously we wouldn't want it to infringe on that. That's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
My name is Jessica Anderson. I live on Barley Drive in Old Mill Estates. I just wanted to mention that at other meetings that we've been to, that City Council has been invited in our neighborhood, we've had 100 people or more. And I'm sure you guys have been flooded with emails and whatnot from our city, or from our neighborhood and from concerned residents. My husband would be here tonight, but he is coaching a 10-year-old soccer game, and that's very important to those 10-year-olds. So I think that's some of why we don't have 100 or more people here. We have the support, we have people, and I know you've heard from all of them. My concern is just, who do you represent as city council members? Are you representatives of the community, or are you representatives of another, maybe okay, cookie cutter builder? Are you worried about his bottom line, or are you worried about our community? Obviously, you know what our community feels in this. We are pro-development. We just do not feel that this is in the right place. Like the previous guy said, let's revamp the city, the general plan. Let's make it work for what the community wants right now, not what the community wanted 20 years ago or the last time you looked at it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Shay Mitchell. I live on River Ridge Lane, kind of the River Cove, Quail Hollow border. My main question is, I guess I don't understand if this went through the planning commission and they didn't agree to have this move forward because of our voice and concerns. I'm just curious of why we would bring it then to city council to have it overridden. So what's the point of these public hearings, essentially? And then secondly, like I intentionally purposed a home, I purchased this home on this area of town because it's less dense and they're residential homes and it's not all the busy east side of town. I've always been, I mean, I grew up in Palmyra, but yeah, like I just purchased, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollar home just to be here where it's less dense. So pretty disappointing to now have to have these discussions where it seems like this would suit more elsewhere in the city, not necessarily this area where they're bigger lots, I guess. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Cami Hansen, and I live on 1300 South in the development that's just south of ALA. One of the things that I think it was Mr. Moody that brought up was the expansion west. So I just want to talk briefly about Mill Road. There's discussion about that roundabout coming off out of ALA to divert traffic, but the Mill Road in the morning, if you get it on a garbage day, good luck. It's not wide enough with its current flow to get the number of cars that we currently have. And again, adding to that is going to be hurtful. And there's no discussion about who's going to fix Mill Road. In one of our previous meetings, Mr. Ingram said, well, we can't widen that road until we have the growth. Well, but the growth already is there and it needs to be widened, and yet there's no discussion of that. I am also a Riverview mom. My kids do not walk to Riverview currently because there is no safe walking zone. You can talk to the school and they can tell you, yes, we have a safe zone. It goes around Del Monte. No. There's not a crosswalk there, as is. The only concession that the school has given Mr. Ingram is that we'll put one there maybe if this expansion happens. But it still is an issue, and most of us choose to not have our kids walk because the traffic flow is already a C and it's only going to get worse. So I also am against this.
My name is Ashley Okerlund. I live on Wheatfield Lane in the Old Mill Estates development. I've appreciated the meetings that Dean has had with our neighborhood and listening to our voice, and as well as the city council. My thing is that I think there's been some misconceptions. Some of us have lived in high density. We don't have anything against it. It worked for us at the time. But my husband and I, we moved away from high density and bought in this development because it's more spread out and nicer, bigger lots. That's why we spent the money and we moved here. I feel that the areas taking it from industrial all the way to R3, why cram townhomes in this small area when you've got much wider space open, like we've discussed, to the west that will be developed? It just doesn't, go to R15 or R12, don't jump from all the way to R3 and cram where it obviously doesn't look right on the general plans. Some of those discussions that we've had as a community, and but yeah, that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
First of all, I'm Thomas Silva. I live on Barley Drive. I want each and every one of you guys to, I appreciate your time, but to answer me this: why do you live in Spanish Fork? I'm from up north. I moved down here because I like the open space. I think this is the closest to home down south that I could find that has that open space. Now look behind you. This is one of the nicest places we have, but look what we have. We have the rodeo behind us. We have the space. What are we for? We're for our agricultural. We're for space. We want big lots. We want the feel of the country. I bought my home and I placed my home where it was. I brought my mom from up north here to Spanish Fork. Why? Because I looked around and the community I wanted was to have my kid be able to go ride a dirt bike outside, or go ride around with, like I did with my friends in my neighborhood. Because A, there wasn't a lot of cars, and B, some of the friends I made during that time, I have today. They're my childhood friends. So I live on the corner of Barley where this traffic will all flow. I agree with the path of least resistance. I understand what Dean has been said. He's tried to work with us. He has. But we've had over 100 people on a call because of COVID till midnight saying we don't want this. And the only people that was on the call that was for it, that said that they were for it, that spoke up, I have to say it was his employees. Now, nothing against them in our community. Yeah, they live in our community, but they're his employees. The people that are here today and the people that have wrote you emails, the people that you represent, your people that put you in office, don't want this. So who do you represent? Do you represent us that feel that why we moved to Spanish Fork, this great community that we love? Or do you represent people that want to change it and bring development? Am I pro-development? Yeah, I'm a construction man. I'm an electrician. I'm helping building the hospital right now. Not here. You can put it anywhere in the city, anywhere in the open space, but not here. Because it's a small piece of property, and besides the fact, if you look right next to it, the MATC has a little piece of dirt right between the two. We're not even talking about developing that. It's tiny. They said there was a whole bunch of trash that was left on the property. That was one of the biggest reasons to clean up the property and beautify our city. Well, sad thing to say is ALA is the one that left it there. It's old mats from their field. They dumped it there. So, okay. And I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Anyone else who's got something that's different than what we've heard so far?
Good evening. My name is Melanie Johnson, and I live down in the River Cove subdivision. One thing that I don't think that has been mentioned on that side, down in the River Cove division, they have at least 18 homes getting ready to be built there. And I've recently been told that there is about 50 plus that's planning to be built down in that subdivision. And so I know that the issue of traffic has been brought up a lot, but that is a specific point that has not been brought up, that traffic study was done before that division was even brought in. So that only adds to the congestion up on Del Monte and getting out on West River Drive. And it's already a problem right now. I mean, I have a almost 2-year-old. He turns 2 on Thursday. And we don't have our backyard finished yet, but so we spend a lot of time on our front yard. And there is a lot of traffic that comes through, and they don't normally follow the speed limit. So that is a concern of mine with young kids. We are out there all the time with them. But I also moved from a high-density townhome in Santaquin, and that was not planned very well. I don't have anything against the high-density townhomes. However, in that specific development, the roads were not wide enough for trucks. A lot of people around here drive trucks. You could not park a truck in those garages. And our builder was someone different. It was not Arrive Homes, but having looked at Arrive Homes in other areas, you cannot fit a truck, a big, large truck in those garages, which is another cause for concern, I think, with traffic, people parking on the roads, etc. But I think I echo what has been said here. I think that there are better areas that this type of housing could serve. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know. Has anybody been over in the overflow? Do you know?
No, I don't think so. I think they
Okay.
all that came over here.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. My name's Jordan Brown. I live in the Old Mill area of this subdivision, and I kind of wrote down my thoughts so I don't go over my time. Arrive has done a really nice job in inviting us to these meetings, and I know it was brought up in the meeting with the Planning Commission that they felt that maybe we vilified Dean, and I feel really bad about that. I don't think that's a great representation of our community as a whole. I think you have a lot of passionate people that obviously feel very strongly about this situation. So Dean, if you felt that, we're sorry. It feels a little disingenuous, though, to be honest, to have a company such as Arrive tell us and the City Council what we want there. It's been said multiple times that we don't want a commercial situation to be put in that area. Talking to the residents in our area, if we were to vote, I think Arrive would be surprised that we would take a commercial situation in that area. The hours of operation are different. They don't compete with the schools normally. You don't have, there are certain city ordinances that are in place for businesses that they have to comply, which I think is harder to enforce in a townhome situation than it would be a commercial situation. So that being said, I just would like it to be known that if really truly given the option of, if those are there's no solution in between of townhomes and a commercial situation, I think your residents would prefer a commercial situation.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, thank you, thank you. If not, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal, a second by Council Member Beck. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, any questions, comments from the council?
Dean. So the biggest thing I heard here is, of course, traffic. And you've got two proposals in here, but they're not a part of your development. This is something that's going to happen in the future, or?
Which, the traffic, the school?
The school and the roundabout part.
So that's what we are participating in. So the school is going to make a pretty large contribution. We're going to make a pretty large contribution, and the landowner is. So I think we've.
So that will be a part of the development. That's not something that's.
I can't say the timing's the same, but we'll be putting the money forward as part of this development.
Okay.
My guess is I think it would go through during this development. I can't imagine not.
Because I'm sure you're aware of that we tried to improve the traffic and run against some walls, but we couldn't get that done. So.
Yeah. So like I said, the whole thing was done in meetings, and they tried to do that study, but there was no participation from anybody, and I think the city decided it wasn't, if it's not important enough for the school at that time, then why do it? I do think that one can I make one comment on that? I think the river, I get the Quail Hollow is an issue. They're coming out on that intersection, which is a tough spot. One thing about this design is that everything goes out with a median is going out to
The west.
is going out to Mill Road, which means that you'll have less traffic that's causing that issue. I think there's also that whole road will be widened, so the 20 some odd foot whatever is now is a collector road, and two of those ours would be one, and the other development on the corner is obviously already approved. There's only one more there. So.
HOA fees?
Oh gosh, I think it depends on what we include in them, but Spanish Fork's great with your communications and stuff, but my guess would be around $100 or less.
And are these, so I've heard from both, but these are higher end or townhomes, and the
Correct.
cost of them will be...
Typically, we're running in the low to mid threes on this type of product.
Okay. Okay, I got a question for Dave. So, and I don't know that maybe this, so we engineered this safety route, and to me, that's really got nothing to do with the development. I don't know, is that something that we're gonna follow through with? Because I mean, that should be there already. I mean, that's not something that should be contingent on whether this development goes through, because the school's there and the people are already going to that school. That wasn't my question for you, but the reason why, you said the reason why that review said no was because of the density? Was that what you said?
The Planning Commission.
Planning Commission, oh,
recommended
okay.
that it be denied. Boy, frankly, I think density, I
Yeah,
think that.
and I've read it all, but I didn't see one kind of really,
Right.
one specific, because it was pretty long and lengthy. Okay. I think that was, do we know anything about the safety route, Dave?
I think we know quite a bit about it, yeah.
Okay, because either way, that's got to be, to me, that's, I mean, every one of them's expressed to their children,
yeah,
and the safety of them, and I know that, and I hope you people know that too, that Spanish Fork City doesn't improve the roads. That's what Dean does. He gets to improve the roads and then donate them to the city, and I'm sure you know that. However, I mean, we have tried to improve, and we're doing improvements with the school district and stuff to improve the traffic and everything, and it's a lot of money for the city to do that after the fact, this case in point, because there is huge traffic problems. We already know that, but this safety route is probably pretty important, Chris.
Yeah, and if I could back up a little bit. First of all, I've never been a fan of the traffic in this area. I think it's awful, and we have studied it and tried to work with ALA to get some solutions done. The biggest problem is the cost, and that goes to what you were saying. The cities don't build roads. If we built the roads, your property taxes would be about 5 times what they are now. The roads are very, very expensive to construct, and so developers build roads. And a lot of the concerns that have been voiced on width of roads and different things, those are solved as roads get built, and it's developers that build them. So at some point, a lot of those will be solved when development comes. One of the issues on the safe route is you have to have sidewalk running down, or trail, which is what our plan calls for, running down Del Monte, for that to become a safe route. You can't call it a safe route and then have them, the kids walking in the road. So that's why some of that's on hold. We don't have funds to build the curb gutter and the sidewalk and all of that to create that. The biggest issue is the peak traffic, which creates the failing level of service. I was impressed with the one resident that read the traffic study. I'm not a traffic engineer, and those studies generally aren't my favorite things to read. But I sat down with traffic engineers and met with them quite a bit on this, and the way that they explain it to me is all of the improvements that were actually recommended by this a study that the city and ALA actually commissioned to be done are quite expensive, and to the tune of around $800,000, which is a lot of money. And so I'm the Public Works Director, so I am in charge of the streets budget. And I can tell you right now, there's not $800,000 in that budget to do this work. And so at some point, ALA, a developer, a combination of which, and the city are going to have to come together to pay for those. But I don't see that happening for a long time unless a developer comes to the table. So that's one of the reasons why engineering's recommended that this be approved only if the developer participates in that, and so that was one of the things that came out of it. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, does. Thanks, Chris.
Can you speak to the letter grade?
Yeah, so
Jason brought up?
So right now, there's not a road there coming out on 1100 East, so there's no existing letter grade there. But without those improvements, the $300,000 worth of improvements, that you could have 1 acre lot subdivisions go in there and it'd have a failing letter grade there. If there was a road there, it would fail. And so a key is getting these improvements that the study says are needed, and then that will facilitate traffic flow. Eric Nilsson, I don't see him here anymore, but he was sitting back here. His problems drive me crazy. I'm right with him on that. You look at how close Quail Hollow is with their access onto Del Monte from Arrowhead Trail, and what a nightmare that is. We've looked at that over and over again. We think the solution is likely, it's not the, it's not going to be a perfect solution, but maybe a do not block the intersection type striping. We're working on that plan right now, but yeah, there's some problems in this whole area, and we've looked at them, and we're trying to get some solutions to that, but you can't solve all the problems immediately, at least unless you really increase property taxes.
Thanks, Chris. Anybody else?
One of the challenges for our staff and as we deal with traffic in this area is it's really not associated with this development. All the problems that I think we've heard today are problems that exist today. And there is concern, of course, that adding, whatever the number is, 54, I think you said today, adding the 54 adds to it potentially. But all the challenges that we're talking about in the neighborhood exist today. And they exist today because not any of these neighbors' homes were built. It existed, I think, before these neighbors' homes were built. It exists because of the school that is there. And that's not to say that the school is bad, but it's because there's a school there. And we have problems that exist around our community where schools exist because schools get located in places that we can't regulate as a city. So for example, the ALA school goes right here in the middle of an area where there is no network of roads, right? They have historic farm roads, Mill Road, historic farm road, Arrowhead Trail, or Del Monte. No widths, no shoulders, and we as a city actually can't regulate that. I don't know if any of the residents here know that, but as a city, our ability to regulate development has been taken away from us for schools. That the state legislature took that away from us, I don't know, decades ago probably. There's a much worse situation that exists in Spanish Fork on Reese Avenue, the Reese Elementary School. That is the most deplorable school situation that we have. an elementary school in one-way traffic. There's one road in and one road out. We've been working on this problem for 15 years, trying to get another road into there, but we can't because of land and other things. And we would love to solve that problem. We have another problem that exists around Maple Mountain High School. Maple Mountain High School exists in an area where 10 years ago there were ribbon roads. That's what we call these roads here. Mill Road is a ribbon road. You've got no shoulder. You've got, sorry, Dan, I think I just shot that in your eye. Ribbon roads are just that. This is fine. I don't want to do. Oh, I forgot about the people behind me. Thanks. So the ribbon road is a great country road, but it's not a great city road. And so for us, as we develop as a city, would you mind maybe just going to the area around Canyon Elementary, East Meadows Elementary for us for just a moment? I think this is really instructive maybe for the council to consider as, 1700 East, 1400 East. Thank you. This is a part of town that, don't go too close. Whoa, zoom out, there we go. Let's see, let's get ourselves oriented. Here's 1400 East. Yeah. Here is 1400 East. There is 1400 East. Yeah, I even trained on this. Everybody look to the south. Okay. Shut up. Everybody look to the south. Canyon Elementary is right there. Okay, this is 1400 East right here. Here's Canyon Road. Let's see, 1700 East right here, 2300 East right there. In this area, we have from 1100 East to 2600 East, there are some 2,000 homes today. And we can pull up the numbers. I can't remember. It's like 300 or 400 homes in the area that we're talking about right now. All of these are served by a network of roads that were at one point just simply country roads. 1400 East was a country road. 1700 East was a country road. 2300 East was a country road. And as development occurs, it gets wider and wider, and some of these problems get solved. I don't bring this up to push the can down the road, but one of the things that we need to recognize and understand is that development, although it does bring challenges, development often brings solutions. And I'm not arguing for or against this particular applicant, but I think it's important that we understand that development is really what's going to solve a lot of the problems that we have heard today about traffic. I want to solve these neighborhood problems just as bad. Well, I can't say just as bad as them. They live here and they experience it more than I do. But it really does grate on us the challenges that they face. But development's really going to solve it. If you'll go back to the subject area for me, Nick. Somebody mentioned the road widths. They are, the ribbon roads are not as wide today. There also isn't, there aren't cars parked along these undeveloped areas, for example, in a neighborhood. I actually don't believe that this is the path of least resistance to and through that area. Living in a neighborhood, just the same. If I live right here and I'm going to go into, I want to go to the freeway, I'm going to go right out onto this collector road that is Del Monte. I'm going to hit the light and I'm going to be on my way. I'm not saying that to offend anybody. I'm not saying that to object to anything that was said, but I'm saying that to provide maybe a contrary thought. Of course, everybody that has spoken has shared a similar view, but as somebody that develops, that works in the community, that works on development, I don't do any development, but I work on development, I see it every day, and I live in the community just as you do. I think it's important to understand and maybe consider it from a different perspective. That's a straight shot, getting right out onto Del Monte. Running through a neighborhood isn't. Will somebody do it? Sure, somebody might. But I live in an area where I go out into my neighborhood, and the first place I'm getting to is, whether it's 1700 East or 2300 East, I'm getting to that collector road. I'm not winding through the neighborhood. One of the things that will bring, I think, a lot of relief to this area, and I believe this is a long ways off, unfortunately, is development west of Mill Road. The width of Mill Road is pretty well set on the east side, but it has not been set on the west because there is no development on the west. It's the legacy homes that are beautiful, those farm homes that are there, but they weren't established with any kind of city road width standard. They were, of course, developed generally in the county years ago. I love them, and I hope that they are there for a long time. But again, development is what will solve a lot of those challenges too. I think that's all I wanted to add to the discussion on traffic. I think we can do these residents better as it relates to getting children to the school, Riverview Elementary and to ALA. I don't remember some of the specific discussions about the ALA, but I think one of them was you would like to see some kind of a traffic crossing guard maybe in this area or somewhere along this street for your children to get to the ALA. And I think that's something we can certainly work through with public safety if we haven't already. Did Steve leave? Steve moved. There you are. Have we talked about this? Do you know if we've talked about this intersection as this crossing, a safe walk area, crossing guard? So I think that's something that we can work through with both the ALA and the Riverview and provide a safe walk route, having sidewalk, having curb and gutter in the area, whether it's with this development or whatever the next one is, if it's denied. Having some development here that improves this lot will make traffic better. And the issue is, what will that development be? Sorry, one last thing. There has been some comments. I went to a neighborhood meeting with some of these residents. I don't know when that was, 6-8 months ago? A year ago? Holy COVID. A year ago. All right, a year ago. And there was some expression there that they'd rather see an industrial use. As somebody that participates in the development process, I think that's a terrible idea. I think the current zone of I-2 mixed in this neighborhood is a terrible idea. And I just want to be very straightforward about that. I think it's a terrible idea. If you're not going to zone it, today with this zone, which is totally up to you, then I would suggest that we zone it something else. And that process needs to follow the process. But I-2 is a terrible zone today. That's what it was as the legacy zone when this area was annexed into the city in the 90s. It was zoned industrial back then. This is an area that we should have changed its zone a long time ago, but we didn't. We haven't. So I appreciate that as these residents consider the possibility of this proposal versus some unknown. I don't want the bird that's in my hand, if you will. I'd rather have the bird that's in the bush. That unknown, I think to say for us to leave it as industrial is very poor community planning, and would recommend that we consider something other than the I-2 zone, whatever that is, be it commercial or something like that. I don't know if commercial will work. It may sit vacant for another 10 years, and we will have the same problems that we have had for the last 10 years. But letting it go to some industrial use, I think, is poor community planning, and would recommend that we consider something else. And I'll leave that. If you have any other questions for me, then holler at me.
Yeah. Or Chris, but when the roundabout was proposed or in the study, I've received messages from friends that live on Mill Road that you're going to put a lot more traffic on Mill Road. And when you were just talking about, that being the old farm road, what consideration for those older homes that, getting out of their driveway, if you will? Is that a Chris question or a Seth question?
I'll let Chris answer that one.
Thanks, Chris. Seth? Does my question make sense? Okay.
So the width of a road isn't a volume issue, it's a safety issue. And so what they're speaking to is, hey, it just doesn't feel safe. It's so narrow, especially if garbage cans are out and kids speeding down there. We worry about it. As far as the number of cars, there's not enough cars to warrant 3 lanes. We're not even close to that. But it's the narrowness of the road that they're concerned about, and that will not get solved until development. We tried to fudge it when overlay, and we kind of overlaid a lot of the shoulder and tried to get as wide as we could, but that really wouldn't be solved until development occurs. Now, as far as the roundabout goes, when the traffic engineers put that in there and they started modeling things, what the roundabout does is it allows traffic to be directional. And so instead of cars coming down Del Monte, going in, and then trying to get back out on Del Monte, creating friction at all the points there, it directionally goes around. And the model shows that flows very well and works as far as queuing goes at the two signals. The study also showed that we needed a signal at Mill Road, and UDOT came and was on the steering committee for that study and agreed to put that signal in. And so with all of those, it models out quite well.
And I guess to be clear to those that live on Mill Road, those friends of mine, Spanish Fork Junior High just finished the project that they participated in with us as a city to fix, dropping off, right? And so whether or not we're talking about this project, that project would have been done or being completed as we speak. Is that an accurate statement? If ALA would have participated?
Yeah, and that's really a budget decision by the city council, and the feeling was where if a school comes to the table and participates in the solution significantly, like Spanish Fork Junior High did, then the feeling I got from the city council is the city would try to find the funds to kind of match that. But ALA was not able to get any funds for that, and so that's why we did the two studies, and the one study actually at Spanish Fork Junior High is just finishing up. This one's just waiting for some funding, and that's why we recommend the developer kind of make that happen.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
No, not right now.
Questions down here?
Yeah, I do. I've got some questions and some comments. Please excuse if I'm smiling big as we go through this. For 15 years, I taught elementary kids. I taught in 5th grade about the process, our process of government. In fact, at the time I was teaching it, I ran for city council, fully expecting not to get elected. Because as citizens, we're very, and the word just left my, it's not critical, it's skeptical. We're very skeptical of government. We're very skeptical of how things work. Now the way federally things are happening, even more so. And so we see federal, and unfortunately a lot of those feelings at the federal level are trickling down to the state. And so we think the state is all out to get us. And then we think the city is all out to get us. And then eventually, with masks and the fact that we can't hug people and things like that, I fear that we'll get to a point where we think our neighbors are out to get us because we're losing that personal interaction. So I say that because for the time I taught about our government, this is the interaction I talk to my kids about. This is what I hope that they grow up to do, is to come. Now with that, I do have some questions and then also some comments that I want to try to address. And some of them, it's just, I will just ask them and we'll just go as they came because there's no particular order. Let's see, I know parking, well, traffic has been kind of hit and there aren't any great answers because traffic has been an issue, as was mentioned, as the first houses started moving in. It's been an issue whether this development passes or not, and will continue to be an issue until development does come that can widen the roads, and that's been discussed. I know that a concern was mentioned about parking on the streets in the neighborhood. And my questions and comments, I'm not meaning flippant. Some of them are just simply, I need someone either to help me understand it. The parking on the streets in your neighborhood are city streets. The parking on the street in front of my house, it's a city street. And so though I may not like the fact that, and I live on a corner, that I have people parking in front of my house and on the side of my house that don't live at my house, sometimes is a challenge. But at the same time, it's a city street and I can't affect where people park. It certainly adds to the challenge with our kids and safety because kids don't stay on the sidewalks. That being said, and part of the challenge is as elected officials, because we do receive the emails, we do listen to everyone. There are some citizens that wrote, let's see, and I wrote it down. Well, I'll do my best. They wrote emails, many of you wrote emails that were 5, 7, 8 paragraphs long. We've read every word and every paragraph. But there were some in your neighborhood that had the concerns and said that I love that my kids can play in the front yard and in the street anytime. And then 2 paragraphs later would say, I can't let my kids go outside and play at all because traffic is currently so bad. And so as a teacher, I'm looking at conflicting comments in an essay that someone has written. And as city council, we're doing our best to try to meet those needs. But when citizens, and it wasn't just one, there were several emails where someone says, I love my neighborhood because my kids wander everywhere. And then later in that same email, decry and say, but I can't let my kids out anywhere because the traffic is so bad and people are flying down the roads and this neighborhood will make it worse. And so the conflicting arguments from the same person makes it very difficult. Another concern I have is and this is collective because in my own neighborhood, people say the same thing, is the individual accountability. If people drive the speed limits, if we do and obey the laws that exist, then safety and traffic aren't an issue. And so some of the discussion has been, well, this project cannot happen. And there are other projects as well that we've discussed in recent months with the same thing. It can go anywhere, but not here. And there are other discussions as to the hows and whys, but with regard to traffic, we are saying as citizens that a development can't go in an area because I don't trust that everyone else drives the speed limit. I don't trust that everyone doesn't make a California stop at stop signs, which I don't see that as fair because we don't do mass punishment at school with kids and say, well, I don't think that you can't kick, kids are going to kick it over the fence, the ball, so therefore no balls go out to recess. And granted, that's oversimplifying it, but I'm just sharing my thoughts. The reason why I'm going through it with such detail like this, 11 hours ago, and I'm not going to call out the name, but one of you, this person may actually be in here because I know not everyone spoke. Aren't these public hearings usually just a formality? This was 11 hours ago on Facebook. Seems like they've already decided what they are going to do and our voices don't really matter much. Later in that same thread, also 11 hours ago, so really about the same time period, someone who may be here, who may not, had said, all of us who are against this are talking out of our backsides. Spanish Fork City is going to do whatever the blankety blank they want, regardless of what we think. They act like they honestly want our opinions and feedback, but at the end of the day, it all goes unnoticed. And these are Facebook comments from your neighborhood, comments from our city. Well, okay. And I appreciate that. But nonetheless, that's a thought that many people have shared, not just for this development, but for other developments. And so I'm going through this as detailed as I can. So you see the thought process that we go through. So you see that we do take it seriously. And unfortunately, the time that I've been on the council, it has been, well, you didn't do what I wanted, therefore, aren't these public hearings usually just a formality? There's that comment of agreeance. If you didn't agree with me, then you must have certainly, cynical, there's the word that I was looking for earlier, I apologize. Then it's that cynical nature. If you didn't do what I said, then you must have already had your mind made up. Or, as others have made in other threads with developments, you must be in bed with the developer. You must be getting kickbacks. It isn't just that, well, maybe you saw it differently or there are other options out there available. So I'm sharing this so you can see that we do take it seriously and you see the discussion that we go through. Okay. In the same study, and I'm not going to call out names just because, as has already mentioned, I appreciate the apology to the developer because some of the emails and things were comments that I had received and I read were about the developer and about the landowner and what they chose to do and how much they sold it. Quite frankly, it's their land. If they want to sell it for $5, boy, I'll be in line and I'll buy it. But they're selling it for more, and I can't afford that on a teacher's salary. But that's neither here nor there as to what's being sold and for how much and what they choose to do with land that they own. So I'm not calling names out. I'm just going through so that it doesn't seem like a personal attack or a personal discussion necessarily. It's just the talking points. One thing I've learned in 24 years of military is I can have my backside chewed by a general to the point that I feel like crying, and then I can go out to ice cream with him later and spend some time talking, discussing about whatever other issues, even though we had that disagreement. The same traffic study did say, talking about multifamily dwellings, which this development has, as compared to single family. That same study, and this was also brought up in the meeting, talked about that single family homes generate 720 trips a week, and multifamily homes would generate 444 a week. Now this is all based on modeling. We don't know because they haven't been built. And the only way you know is if it's built, and then you see what actually happens. But based on the modeling, if it goes to single-family dwellings, which is what some of the emails had proposed, it generates, through modeling and through historical data, more traffic than this current development does, at least as I'm reading it in the studies that exist, which is one thing that I take into consideration with my decision. And that ties also certainly into children's safety, looking at it that way. One question I do have, and I don't know, well, I'll use the name on this one because either Mr. Davis, you have specific knowledge. I've been on the city council for a decade. I've been on for 10 years. I was on the city council when the Mulestein area developed. The mayor and I were both councilmen at the time. And so the question I do have, and normally we kind of discuss, it's not a back and forth, but either Mr. Davis, if you know, or if city staff, and we've worked long enough together that I don't know that you would, it says deals need to be kept, and I'm paraphrasing. No one will listen to the rules. They will do what they want. My question is, what deal, what contract was signed? Because the way government works is, as a city council, we can't bind the hands of a future council. And a previous council can't say, in 20 years, the city council at that time has to do X, Y, Z. It doesn't work. It can't happen. And so my question is, what deal or what contract existed that said the lots have to be a certain size? Now I know with the Mulestein, because that was mentioned, and I only bring up that name because it was mentioned, that it existed only to a certain point and that it did not cross the road as far as the lot sizes. So that's my question. I apologize. Are you Mr. Davis? I am. Okay. I apologize because I faces and names. What deal or what contract was signed that was binding? Because a gentleman's agreement over years, landowners buy, change, things like that. It's very hard to tell this homeowner that they can or can't do something because 2 generations ago, the farmer that sold the land said X, Y, Z. So that's why I asked what deal or contract.
I get that, but as far as I'm concerned, a gentleman's agreement takes precedence over a written legal agreement. And from the very beginning, as a matter of fact, the majority of the public officials that we started these discussions and meetings.
Yeah, sorry about that.
The majority of these public discussions, when they started, or I should say, the majority of the personnel that were in these public discussions, especially higher up in the city echelon, are still here. I can remember sitting in this room before it was developed like this when we had the first meeting, and and the man's in this room right now said, Mill Road will always remain a country lane like we want it. Now I know we can't stop development, and it was half-acre lots. We want to go through this area and keep it half-acre. We got the general plan that's probably still somewhere on the city's website, because I found it in the past, where development starts from the freeway, higher commercial, higher, lower, 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 and then in this area it stays half. Now I know there's no written agreement that somebody can take to a lawyer and say this stands King's X on it, we're gonna keep this agreement. But as far as I'm concerned, when somebody makes a deal in my business, it's a deal. It doesn't have to be written down. And I think that's wrong. Man, I'm just like you. I was in the military 18 years. I went to Afghanistan and I shot people, okay? If you're taking away somebody's free agency, no, there was no deal that when I said I shot people, that I'm going to do it fairly. It's just a matter of bang, bang, bang. You're shooting at me, I'm shooting at you, and I'm deciding your future. That's more of a deal than a written description or a written contract. So if people cannot honor what they say and record, because you can go back through the city's recordings and find these discussions, that's the written contract as far as I'm concerned. Now I know it's not city-owned property, and so the city can't own it. But it's kind of like when Milstein's first got put in, it was all this talk about doing the right thing for the citizens. And one day we woke up and there's curb and gutter. Okay, before that they took Frank Haymore and said we want to take this curve out of the road. And so if you're going to take the curve out of the road, because people couldn't see through the blind curve, they took his fence down, they cut his driveway down, and it became a kind of a problem to enter his house. If you're going to do diligence and not do for yourself, you're going to demo Frank's house, you're going to demo Connie Milstein's house at the cost of the developer, because that's who pays for it, right? He's the guy asking permission. Not push it on the guys on the right, on the west side of the road. That's all downhill. There's underground culvert, there's a power line, and so you do what's good for yourself and you stick it to the guy in the future. And that's the wrong thing to do. If you're going to ask for something, you should be willing to pay the price. And so that's why I think if you go back through the records, you'll find those statements made. Leland will. As a matter of fact, I even remember one guy saying, if it doesn't go our way, there could be eminent domain. I thought, good criminies. This was a city official in this room. And so I say, if you don't keep a deal, if I have a customer that doesn't keep a deal for me, then why do I want to trust that customer? He has a track record, and I think words mean nothing. Track record means everything. And so somebody that keeps coming and trying to cut down the lot sizes so that they can maximize their profit, which is nothing wrong with profit, they can maximize it their own for themselves at the expense of others, that person has lost my respect, and I do not listen to them, anything they say, until, in the Army, it takes 7 attaboys to make up 1 aw crap. In the Army, they said it different, okay? You got to do it 7 times good to make up 1 aw crap. I haven't even seen 7 times good. I bet you these folks here that live in Arrive homes, I don't live in one. From what I understand, they can't say aw crap against Arrive because they've signed it in a contract. I can't verify that, but I can.
Okay. Well, I appreciate that.
Am I going on too far?
Yes, please. If you.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you. Just a few more things, Mayor. I won't comment. I appreciate your comments. I don't want it to be a banter back and forth. The many things you said, I completely agree with. Unfortunately, with city and laws, there are certain things where there have to be written agreements and written contracts. But another concern that I had, and again, is the fact that a project doesn't tie to a person. And I mentioned, and I appreciated that. Another comment: who do we represent, and whose bottom line? We represent the city of Spanish Fork, the businesses, the citizens, the children, the newborns, the elderly, the nursing homes. We represent that geographical area is who we represent. And as such, there are certain things, property rights have to kind of guide and direct those boundaries. That's one thing I've learned. is if you want to do something at your house, you have that right within the law to do so. If someone wants to do something at their house, there are certain guidelines and restrictions, and if they're doing it at their house or on their property, it's not within my realm. I can have an opinion, certainly, but it's not for me to tell you 5 houses down, you can't paint it that color, or you can't add on that dog run in the backyard, those types of things. And that's oversimplifying the issue. We represent you that live here. We represent the landowner that owns the land. We represent the developer that buys the land that the landowner put up for sale. And so it's not, in one of the emails I had received, it made it almost like it was like a tit for tat. Well, there are 100 landowners telling you we don't like it, we don't want it. There is one landowner that's trying to sell it and then get it developed. Therefore, we outweigh this one, which if that's the case, then you have mob rule. You have social justice. You no longer have the rule of law. You can't take 8, 10, 100, 1,000 that say, well, we don't like what that person's doing, therefore they must acquiesce. Because then the law won't defend me, it won't defend you. If that's the case, then why do criminals have defense attorneys? Because if the law doesn't defend them, whether they're guilty or not, it has to defend them and their rights. Because if it doesn't, it will never work for us and our rights. It just simply won't. And so whether there's 100 or 1,000 or 5, collectively you can't outweigh the property rights of one. It's a 1-to-1 ratio, even though collectively you all have the same thought or the same viewpoint, if I'm explaining that well. Okay, safe zones, and we talked about that. The school district, I can tell you the school district is always looking at that. The city is always looking at that for the kids. Kid safety is of the utmost and the most important. For those that purchased because of the way it was zoned, or the way that it looked, or the way that it is, I sympathize. I try to empathize. But unfortunately, we live in a society where if you want it to stay and maintain a certain look or certain feel, you have to buy the lot next to you if you want to maintain that view. You have to buy the lot across the street if you want it to stay the sand lot for the kids to play baseball in. I have that in my own neighborhood. I live in the old part of town. There is no development that can take place. There is no land in the old part of town. From Zion's Bank kind of going out east that way. They're all there. Houses have been, mine's been there since 1890, another house has been there since 1930, 1907, and 1950. But at the same time, there is a development, a high-density development that's going in a half block away from my house because one house was torn down, another house was bought, was torn down, and 8 units are going in. So I empathize because I don't think it fits between a single home and a single home. That's what I have in my neighborhood. A single home on the corner, these 8 or 10 units, whatever it is, it fits because of city ordinance, and then right next to it is a single family dwelling. I don't think it fits the neighborhood by the way it looks, but by law it does. As I look at your neighborhood, landowner, developer, I apologize, I was driving on your land today. I actually drove up in there in my truck as if I lived there. And where would I go and how would I get out? Let me finish that thought first. Right in that neighborhood, you have a high school, you have MTech where the CNAs study, you also have just down below it the truck drivers, the MTech truck drivers there. You have a mill back over behind. You have Sunrock down at the end of the street on the other side. It's a mixed-use area, and I agree that the industrial too is an awful designation for that area. And I agree with the emails that I received that said, hey, this needs to be relooked at and perhaps rezoned in this area and to the west. I don't know if a moratorium by saying, well, we didn't catch it in time, but you have to stop what you're doing, because it doesn't fit the area. As I look at it, and as I mentioned, my neighborhood, it's a single home, and there's no other mixed use, but I have these townhouses going in. A high school, an M-Tech, a mill, Sunrock, this is a mixed use area. And as I look at it, and as you look at the map, or at least as I did, again, driving on the gravel and kind of up and around, putting it right here makes a buffer and kind of puts this nice island or isolates you as the wonderful neighborhood you are. In 3 different discussions, telephone discussions I had with neighbors in your neighborhood, no less than 18 times it was told to me, this is the nicest neighborhood in Spanish Fork City. I think there are neighbors in other neighborhoods that may disagree, but I love the fact that you feel that way about where you live. I think if it were isolated, because you have the mixed use here, the mixed use here, who knows what's going to happen there, mixed use down here. You have a band of mixed use, and those townhouses would just continue with that mixed use, again, as I'm looking at it. Again, as I drove up and around through here, I agree with Seth Perrins, with the city manager. I'm not going to drive through, if I'm trying to get to work, drive through here because someone's going to be backing out of their driveway. Some kid's going to be getting on their bike and accidentally go off into the neighborhood street. I don't want any of this. I want a straight shot to the light, however long or short it takes me, and then I want to get out down this way and then get out to the freeway. I personally would not ever use the neighborhood other than to drive around on my motorcycle and say, wow, look at those flowers, and talk to my wife about the wonderful things people have done that we might incorporate into our neighborhood. Now that's me. Others may do that, but at 7 and 8 in the morning, I wouldn't be coming through here to try to get down. I'm going a straight so I can listen to podcasts, radio, things like that. But again, because of this area, it's already mixed use. The industrial, as was mentioned, I agree is a poor use of the area. 2 different phone conversations I had, they said, I want industrial. One of the challenges I have looking at it from a school teacher's eyes, as parents, especially with younger kids, we give kids books about big trucks and big tractors. My grandson's 4 years old. My daughter's given him 4 books. I went through and looked. Big trucks, big tractors. In the industrial area, you have big trucks and big tractor use. Kids are drawn to those and attracted to those. Why? Because we give them those books and say, hey, look at this. Isn't this cool? Beep, beep, rrr. Isn't this fantastic? And so having an industrial use in this area, which is what some have said tonight, I'd rather have that. Unfortunately, because of how we teach and treat big trucks and tractors, we're inviting the very thing that that's dangerous to our kids into the neighborhood, saying, oh yeah, that was in the book, I like that, I'm going to go walk closer to it. That's just what kids do and how they react. And so my concern would be, if it stays industrial, there's possibly more danger to the kids because they're going after the things that in the books we give them that we say, wow, how neat. Okay, and then the last one, and I mentioned this before, anywhere in the city was actually specifically said tonight, but not here. In the past 6 months, we've had 5 different developments in the city that have been proposed, and every one of those 5 developments, that exact quote has happened, simply because we don't want it here. And that's the challenge, is we weigh the rights of all property owners. We can certainly give our concerns and our cares about traffic and safety. And as mentioned, as a city, we take that very seriously and we'll do all that we can. But at the same time, it's very difficult to manage property rights to say, well, you can do what I want you to do with your land, but you can't do what you want to with your land. And it goes back to the comment I made about a criminal and defense. If property rights don't work to defend someone else's right to do with their land, so long as it's within the law, it won't work to defend our rights to do what we want with our land. And that's just, unfortunately, one of the challenges we live in we live in today. Spanish Fork is a beautiful place. I was asked personally, although it was a collective question, why did I move to Spanish Fork? Because I love it. Came here, was invited to play basketball with Parks and Rec, and stayed. So I came because of Parks and Rec. Land, that's, I love that it's there. Can't afford it, but I love that it's there. I love seeing it. I wish I could afford it, because who wouldn't want to have that space? But at the same time, I can only affect what within the law I can change. Unfortunately, and one of the other comments that was made online was with regard to mob rule. If they don't do what we say, we will collectively do this, do that, and vote them out. Please do. If you want to vote me out because of one decision, please do. That's what I taught my 5th graders to do. That's how we get involved. If you like or don't like, support it. Now, at the same time, I can point at any member of the council and say, well, for the years of service you have done X, Y, Z, A, B, C, wonderful things for the community. But because I disagreed with you on one point, I no longer want you to serve there. Personally, I don't know if I agree with that, and I don't know that I would guide my decisions that way. But if that's how you feel, please do. This is a volunteer opportunity I am so grateful for, because I'm a transplant. I didn't grow up here. Mulestein, I don't know them other than 10 years ago when I met them. All this land for me had houses on it when I moved here, and there was empty land that now has houses, and I'm so glad you're here if you've lived here less time than I have. But please know, as has been mentioned in posts and some of the emails, because even though, as was mentioned, these don't represent you, there were emails that said, if you don't, and I'm paraphrasing, if you don't do what I want you to do, clearly you didn't listen to me, and I'm going to vote you out. If you choose to vote me out, or any of us, so be it. Thank you. I didn't run for popularity. I've served in Iraq and Afghanistan. I've seen some awful things around the world. And I'm so grateful to come to Spanish Fork where I don't see it. I honestly don't. And it's wonderful to live here and be a part of it. After my last deployment, I ran for city council to make a difference and to serve. And so if you don't like my service because of XYZ decisions or multiples, I'm okay with that. And I appreciate the votes I did get to afford me the opportunity. But that being said, we have to be able to obey the rule of law, or it won't defend anything that we choose to do that's within that realm. Please know you are listened to. We do appreciate the things you say, and we do honestly take it into consideration. Mayor, I appreciate the time.
Stacy, you have anything?
Oh, Kier, you exhaust me. No, I agree with Kier on several things, and I mean, I'm sitting up here, and I don't know how any of us are going to vote. We don't talk behind closed doors together. We may say, hey, what do you think of this, or did you get this email, like one-on-one? So like I feel like we're at the end of a game, like the end of a ball game, and we're like let's vote, because I want to see what all these guys say. But I just want to, I guess, take just a couple minutes to preface how I'm going to vote, just my thought process. First of all, to Dean, the buildings are beautiful. You have done a fantastic job. It's unfortunate that just the economy and the time we are in Utah, that a starter home, a townhome, is $300,000 to $350,000. It's crazy. So, but looking at the floor plans and your design, I think it's a great proposal that you've submitted, and I appreciate all of the time that you have listened to the neighbors. That's meant a lot. Then I wanted to just point out a couple people that spoke tonight that kind of spoke to me. Eric Nelson, you live down on Quell. Where's Eric? You live east, yeah. So I think we haven't heard from as many people on your side, more like where Rasmussen's live. So I appreciated your perspective of coming up the hill and trying to get out and making a left-hand turn. That sounds very difficult. And then Moody, what's the plan west of Mill Road? I mean, we need to still go over the general plan. I feel like we need to solidify things there. Jessica, just asking who do we represent, and that she wants us to listen. And I mean, even though I agree with so many things Keir says, we see things differently. I probably see things more like an emotional thing, or how I felt when I first knew that this was coming, and then he's more analytical. So I just respect, you know, the whole process. My concerns, is this the right place for this development? The second one is traffic. I won't rehash that, but traffic obviously is a huge concern. Either way, just like what Seth said, it probably isn't going to change. If this is not approved, you're probably not going to see a big change in traffic. It's going to stay messy. Can we guarantee that there's going to be a wonderful change and it's going to go from a letter C, D, F up to an A? Who knows? I mean, it would be a chance we take. Definitely, we need to change the zoning from I-2, no matter what, I think. Another concern is that Tingy, I'm sure, is watching and seeing what this process goes through as. And even if I like this development, multifamily dwelling on this 6 acres, I worry that, okay, then will another developer come in and want more higher density? Because I personally don't think it's appropriate to have that whole thing high density. So that's a little concerning to me. And I'm also a believer that Spanish Fork actually needs more estate lots and higher, just bigger lots for people to build custom homes. Just since we've been on council together, we actually approved an estate lot because we feel that Spanish Fork needs that. So we need higher density, but we also need more estate lots too. So it's what we're trying to juggle up here. So that's all I have.
Mike?
Thank you, Mayor. I've been, my notes are on my phone that I've been keeping over the past few weeks, so that's why I've been looking at my phone, and I had them on my computer, but our power department. I mean, where's Kelly? Kelly? The outlet's not working back here, my computer's dead. Not a power problem.
Well, we're not
Buildings and
we're not tabling meetings.
Okay, all right. So I gotta,
I'll put it over here.
because will it work over there?
Sure it works over
All right.
here.
So I'm looking at my notes on my phone, and I'll try to read them through this way. I tell you what, first of all, hey, land use in a city and in a public setting and in a local government setting is tough. And it's the toughest thing. It's the toughest thing that we deal with right after public safety, you know, making sure that there's enough firefighters, enough cops, enough EMTs to serve your community. After that, the toughest thing is land use. And I've been doing this for 6 years and seen that that's an emotional subject, but a good exercise in fact-finding mission to when you're talking about land use. I've seen other cities serving this year in the League of Cities and Towns and getting to see most of the 248 cities across the state. That's not unique to Spanish Fork. It's not unique that there's growth, and it's not unique that there's developments that are requesting density. Every community across the Wasatch Front, and even some off the Wasatch Front, are dealing with the same issues. Where I think we hit most singles in Spanish Fork, and I like to use the baseball analogy because that's what we are in Spanish, is where I think we hit most singles is when the political atmosphere of land use authority is as removed as possibly can be, and you just say, here's these facts, here's these facts, let's gather them, and then let's try to make an educated decision based on those facts. And so please know that that's what we're trying to do here, and that's part of the public process. I do feel for you guys, midnight meetings that you've had, and how many ever neighborhood meetings you've had, that it's consumed part of your life. I'm grateful you care about it that much, but that is part of the public process, and that's how it works. So again, I can't tell you how grateful I am that you're involved in it. and to reiterate a little bit of what Keir said, the public process is that, to get a better product, not to necessarily say, all right, let's take a vote. Is this the way this goes, or is this the way this goes? But how can we improve a project? And that's when I've seen it been the best process through land use. I will tell you the applicant, in a public meeting, to tell you the applicant has been a client of mine in the financial world for 15 years. That's a public disclosure I'll make, and he's not the only one. I deal with a lot of different people that build homes, that develop property, that have dealings with the city. That doesn't affect my vote one way or the other, and it's never affected that way with Dean. And it sounds like most of you that have got the chance to know Dean or been a client of Dean's knows that as well, that's no way is that contingent on the way I feel about this particular development whatsoever. The area that we're talking about, it's been said how tough it is here, so I won't rehash that too much, except for the fact that Mayor Caldwell of Ogden City and Mayor Pike of St. George City, I've spoke specifically about this area with them. Those two communities per capita have the most charter schools in their cities. So we have one. Do we have more than one charter school? This is the only one? Just one? Well, Spanish Fork High School, but this charter school.
No, charter in Spanish Fork.
Oh, only charter in Spanish Fork. Okay. So they have multiple in Ogden. They have multiple in St. George. Again, not unique in your neighborhood. Very tough traffic area. And maybe it'll get better years down the road when you do get some improved roads, but it would be years and years and years down the road. They deal with that in Ogden and St. George, and I'm sure every other city. And the reason, it's because it's not just you going to the charter school, right? I mean, I know Nephi people that go to the charter school, Payson people, Springville people. You built a popular draw here that does not, you have people driving in your neighborhood that don't live in your neighborhood. Different for me. Sierra Bonita, Maple Mountain High School, up by where I live, the only people that are driving to those schools are the people in my neighborhood. So you have a tough area, regardless of development and what density and what level and even where it goes around here, you're going to deal with that as long as there's a charter school there. And I appreciate Seth acknowledging and letting you know probably what you already know, but that's not our authority. That's not the city's authority. It's not any city's authority in the state. The school is put where the school is. Development comes around it. It's typically tough for decades around there simply because you have half-built roads just around about every school in the community. Let's see. So we've heard some personal experiences here, and I think those are important. Personal stories to me make a difference. So I appreciate everybody telling their personal stories about what you enjoy about your area, what you enjoy about Spanish Fork. So if you'll indulge me, Mayor, just a couple personal stories. I'll try to be quick. First personal story, Leland Mills, before there was a school there, and before any neighborhoods were there, that's where Chief, or we're past the statute of limitations, but I was 12 in Palmyra. There's a Palmyra person here, I can't remember, right here, yeah. And drove Grandpa's truck from Palmyra up to the mill to drop stuff off, right? Grandpa had to drive a bigger truck with more stuff, so I drove up to Leland Mill. That's one of my earliest memories of Leland Mill, was 12 years old getting to drive the old Ford up there. I threw rocks at cows. They were probably living right where you're built and everything. So I have an affinity for the area. I do love the area. I think it's a beautiful area. I think your subdivision, your homes, are one of the prettiest places in the area. The steps that I've taken, what I walked and walking through your neighborhood, just to try to get a feel for it. I have a few friends that live there and live across the street, and so I've tried to walk it. Like Keir was lazy and drove it. I walked it. Now, just to feel where I live, if you zoomed out to where the Sierra Park is, Sierra Bonita is. I live there, and so I'm walking. How many steps does it take me to get to the townhomes next to my subdivision? I realize it's not apples and apples. I don't live on as big of a lot as you do. It's a different area, but I'm just trying to objectively think and really think how the 300 steps that I take from my front porch versus the closest home here, the 180 steps to where future front porches would be of these townhomes, and really the difference that it's made in my life next to those townhomes, it hasn't been negative. Do I acknowledge there's got to be more traffic because of the townhomes that are more dense than where my subdivision is? It's got to be. But I can't point in 8 years that I've lived there the negative traffic effect that it's had where I've lived. And so I'm just telling you that story from my own perspective, my own lens. I think we've come over I think we've graduated from the idea. Some of the first emails that we got, even before we saw something submitted here, was the type of subdivision that a townhome is. Some emails were the type of people that live in townhome developments and what that creates, and crime and everything else. I think we've graduated from that. I think we are landing on, hey, more traffic could affect my kids and their ability to live happily in my neighborhood. So I think that's what we've boiled it down to. But I got to tell you, when I moved from Palmyra and moved up towards the mouth of the canyon, the townhomes that were next to me is who I grew up playing with. My friend lived in the townhome. That's where I played Nintendo and Sega. Xbox wasn't a thing yet, Kier, but it is now. But that's where I grew up, was in a townhome. The interesting thing is, if you've ever walked, and I thought about this just the other day, but if you've ever walked the river bottoms, the river trail, the person that I spent the most time in that townhome owns more of the river bottoms than maybe any landowner in the river bottoms. So the owner of the river bottoms that we love, and we walk through and we say, that's great corn, that's good looking alfalfa, I love that open space. The guy that owns that lived in the townhomes next to me, and I played with his son, and that's where we grew up. And when it was time to haul hay, we got ready and we hauled hay, left the townhome, and went and hauled hay in the river bottoms. So certainly, I think we have come from that of thinking who lives there. Now that being said, somebody said it, Nathan, maybe it was you, diversity would be good for the neighborhood. I think diversity is good for the neighborhood. I think a diversity of housing, a diversity of people, I think that is good for neighborhoods. I think it's healthy, and I think it's good for the area. It's good for my area. It's good for where I live. And I don't live in a faraway place. I live, a mile up the road here. Last personal story, maybe with this. I appreciate Kier talking about government and how we can have an idea of government and what government is, and we conflate the two often. I find myself doing it, but local government is just your fellow residents trying to make a decision, trying to weigh facts, and trying to put on the best hat that they can to make land use decisions, to make decisions for the growth of this community. Again, I'd stack our record as far as a community on land use decisions and on a host of other decisions up against any in Utah County, but probably in the state as well. So I'm proud of that record. I'm proud of serving with these individuals. I'm proud of the individuals that served before me, that made decisions of this land and what it is and where it's going. Because even though it's tough, it's always going to be tough around schools. It's particularly going to be tough around your school. Last Saturday, I was in a golf tournament and talking to a few people, and I was sitting on a hole, so they were coming through, so I got to meet just about everybody that was there, about 100 people or something, I don't know. Asking them where they're at and where they live, where they're from. and it was Maple Mountain's golf tournament for their dance folks, dance drill team. Thank you, Stacy. And a lot of people from Springville, people from Mapleton, people from Spanish Fork, and again, some of those people, yeah, where do you live? Oh, I live over here in Springville. Oh, I live here in Spanish Fork. And one person said, I live in Springville. I live down in the river bottoms on your way to Bartholomew Pond, because we found a home over there that, you know, was more acreage and nicer and stuff. And we really couldn't find those in Spanish Fork. And I feel like Spanish Fork has a lot of townhomes. And he said, I used to live in Spanish Fork, and now I moved to Springville because I think, and one of the reasons was he thinks we have a lot of townhomes. The guy that's golfing with him, Spanish Fork resident, said, I can't remember the guy's name now, but he said, yeah, Bill, that'd be terrible if your kids could afford to live in Spanish Fork where you live. And they made a joke back and forth, just joking, and I laughed. They didn't know I serve in local government or anything. We just laughed about it. The very next foursome that came up on the hole, asking them where they're from, and the guy that's looked about my age says, I live in Spanish Fork. And I said, great, word, or up this side or that side or what? And no, I live by Sierra Bonita. And I said, I live by Sierra Bonita. Where do you live? I live in the townhomes. I'm like, all right, cool, that's great. What do you do? I'm a teacher at the junior high, Spanish Fork Junior High. And so, again, I don't want to beat this point, but when we start talking about the traffic and where they're going, what they're doing, the cars aren't driving themselves. They are people, right, driving the cars. They would be your neighbors. They would be the high school teachers. They would be the junior high teachers. I dare you to find a townhome development in Spanish Fork that a cop doesn't live in Spanish Fork or a different surrounding city. That's who's going to live in the development. And beyond that, my in-laws moving from Provo, putting their home up for sale to come down to Spanish Fork, live in a mixed-use development community in Spanish Fork, is the former chief of police. I promise you he drives safer than probably any of us in this room. I've followed him down to St. George 65, and he won't clip it. He won't get that. So the human aspect of it, I think, is what I want to touch on. I think there are issues that have been made better. They've been made better because of your involvement. They've been made better because of good study. They've been made better because of concessions. That's what the public process does for development. I think that's when we get a better product, is when those are addressed. But again, the result can't be to say we're not going to develop in this area. Nobody else that owns bare land is going to develop in this area, because it's going to happen. Until that happens, especially around your ribbon roads, you're going to have a tough time getting from A to B. Don't yell at them too loud. They probably live by you. If you know they're from Nephi, yell at them all you want, because they're coming to ALA. But if more than likely, they're going to be people that do live in your subdivision and your neighborhood. I think that's my sermon, Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's all I have.
Oh, thank you. All right, just a couple of things I'll say. Someone asked about, hey, why are we going through this? The planning board already declined it. Realize there's three processes that a person can go through in city government. First of all, you go to DRC, and that's mainly staff and that, and Dave Anderson and the staff. The developer has to go to them first, and they say yay or nay, give them approval. Even if they turn it down, then they can go to the planning board. The planning board, as you know, the planning board is an advisory board for us. They're not binding. So your next step is you go to planning. They make a recommendation, it comes to city council. Now, a lot of times when the planning board recommends something, 9 times out of 10, we'll follow what the planning board is. We go through there. It's not a given. So that individual, even though it got turned down at the planning board, has the opportunity to come before the city council, and the city council can vote their conscience. They can override anything. Everybody likes personal stories. Before I was on the city council, I'm a general contractor. I had a project here on Main Street, the old First Security building. They wanted to put a kiosk. And so it's really hard to do that because UDOT owns Main Street. And so to get UDOT to approve that was kind of like an act of God, you know. So they said, go tell the city. So I went to the city, the planning economic developer at the time, not who we have now, did not like the idea. He said, you've got to go to DRC. So I said, well, DRC is going to turn it down, right? Yep. They turned it down. Planning board turned it down. Yep. And I took it to city council. They approved it. So just so you know, I don't know how this vote's going to go tonight, but I just wanted to tell you that that's their right as anybody in the city that can come. Those are the 3 processes they go through. The other thing, someone asked me, who do we represent? We represent everybody, not just you. We represent the whole city. I've had best friends come here and want something, and you know what? I really wanted to give it to him, but I knew it wasn't best for the city, and I turned him down. I voted against it, and he come up to me, he said, I thought we were friends, and I said, we are, but what you were asking was not best for the city, and I represent the whole city, so I've got to take in consideration everything, and that just wasn't what was going to be best for the city. So I said, we're still friends. The other thing, not in my yard, not in my backyard. How many likes Costco? How many likes Canyon Creek? I was on that city council when that was first proposal, and you know what, the citizens, they were pretty passionate about, what are you doing? Why are you building, why are you taking away our pretty park? Why are you putting commercial here? We like it, but not in my backyard. You know, it doesn't matter where it goes, it's always going to be in somebody's backyard. So I understand the feelings and you know, and I appreciate the passion, but just so you know, sometimes we went ahead and we approved that, and look what we got there. You know, what a great asset to our city. As far as deals go, things like that, I know when Niederhauser came in, he wanted 1/4 acre lots, you know, and they changed that to 1/2 acre lots. So when he built that subdivision, 1/2 acre. Interesting, when Mulestein's came, their first proposal were 1/4 acre lots, you know. And I remember sitting on the city council when they came in and proposed that, and we looked at them and said, hey, you guys are all upset because he wanted 1/4 acre lots, and now we made him change to 1/2 acre. Now it's your development. Now you want what's best for you. You want 1/4 acre. And we made them go back and change it to 1/2 acre lots. Is that what it was? 1/3 acre lots. So whatever it was there. That's what I'm saying. It was some of those things, you know, we have the right to zone and approve whatever's brought before us. You know, that doesn't mean the property next to it falls under that zoning or that use. When that property is brought before us, then we handle whoever's on the council at that time handles that zoning and that change there. So just want you to know, these guys spend a lot of time. I'll stand up for these guys all day long. You know, I appreciate your passion, but these guys are here passion. You don't know how many hours they spend studying the issues and doing things for the city. And this is a great group to work with. You know, they have the best interest in the city. And however they vote, if they vote not your way, they're still great people. If they vote your way, they're still great people. Just know that this is a tough decision. We don't take it lightly. You know, this thing's been going on for a year, you know. So this is a tough one. And I just want everybody to understand that there's been a lot of thought, a lot of stuff that's gone in on this. And so these people have done well to study out the issue, and they're going to vote their conscience. And we'll do that. But I appreciate the process that we go through. You have a voice. You have a voice, you know, and you express that, and I appreciate that. So,
Mayor, could I make a motion to direct staff to study the general plan in this area? Would you allow that?
what, before this vote, or
Before,
are you postponing
regardless.
this vote?
No, I'm not postponing it. I'm just
Okay.
saying, I had a conversation with Dave Anderson about looking at the general plan in this area, and if we could direct staff to do that, it would be a separate motion.
Yeah. I say we
Do
can
it
do
with
that.
a motion.
Yeah, you can do that.
Okay.
With that motion, that's fine. So if there's nothing else, I'd entertain a motion.
And maybe I have a question about the traffic, because that's the overarching concern here of what this is for the residents that I think it's boiled down to. Initiating a general plan review here, would that, for this area, would that involve saying, okay, hey, properties that I know these residents have expressed concerns to the south of here along that road, again, you can see that being undeveloped and how tough that's going to be for a period of time until that develops into something. I got a pointer. Yes, I'm talking about this road here, this area here. You know, I mean, you got half of the road built here, and it's going to be half a road for quite some time until properties decide what they want to do with their land here. But over here is initiating a general plan review, taking into account a motion and a vote on what's being proposed here, with the understanding of, hey, we would like staff to initiate a review of the general plan and involve, would a traffic study get you any more information than what we've got already? That's, I guess, what I'm asking there.
So we hired one of the premier traffic engineers in the state to study this whole area, and they did a very detailed, expensive study of this area. The reason why they were selected is they had done dozens of traffic studies on these type of charter schools throughout the state, because almost every time a charter school gets plopped into an area and destroys the traffic in that area. And so that had become a niche for them, and they had studied these, and the traffic engineers say that their study, the recommendations, should solve the traffic problems in an acceptable way here. Mm-hmm. Now, it won't widen Mill Road until development occurs, and it won't build a sidewalk down Del Monte Road until development occurs, but it will move traffic. And I'm not a traffic engineer, but you're not going to find a better traffic engineer, and so I don't know what more could be studied.
Those traffic studies respectfully did not include Old Mill Estates. Sorry, I know I'm not supposed to talk, but you just didn't include those roads.
Yeah, if you want to go meet with the traffic engineers and show them where they missed the boat, that's fine. I'm not qualified to do the traffic study, and a very qualified firm did it. So I don't know what a traffic study, I don't know what else you could study.
Let me on that thought process, let me just talk a little bit, and this is all getting to a motion, Mayor, so bear with me. But in that vein, Nathan, I think it was discussed here of, hey, I'd accept this if we could block off this road here and make it a cul-de-sac, right? My first thought when that happens is these people paid a premium to probably be on this cul-de-sac, and they did too, and they did too. It was probably different than this person here that's going to be a future road into this development here. So the city's not in the business of closing down public roads to make them cul-de-sacs when they weren't cul-de-sacs. It's also the tough part of, I'll tell you the first time, one of the first road issues that I was emailed about 6 years ago being elected to city council was 130 North that's up by me, and the proposal was to push the road through all the way to Maple Mountain High School and make a roundabout. So 130 didn't go through. The field, part of the field was getting developed into homes, and so the proposal came before the council to make a roundabout and push that road through. The first email I got, and I remember telling Brandon this because Brandon said, hey, run for city council, that'd be a good idea, Mike. And I said, I have an email saying from a resident that I live somewhat close to who says if their handicapped children get hit on that road, it's on my head for voting for a roundabout and a road to go through. And I thought, well, this is going to be fun, 6 years. That's not worth it to me, right? Again, working through the process, studying the traffic engineer or traffic report, listening to the experts in this stuff that certainly isn't me, has resulted in that road goes through, traffic goes to and from Maple Mountain High School, and it's from my neighborhood. I acknowledge that's a little bit different than your neighborhood because you have ALA traffic going to your school, but that road goes through. Thankfully, that I coached the kids, his kids in baseball, and we made amends, and we realized it was just heated discussion. But in that vein, I'd still like. I appreciate what Stacy says. I don't know what you'd get in general plan review. Everything in the state that I've seen, you start looking at general plans, it's going to warrant higher densities, not lower densities. What you just heard from the gentleman before here was that you have not enough housing to catch up to the demand, and the land is expensive. And so the result has been, not only in our community, but other communities, for more multifamily, not less. That doesn't mean it's a given. We weigh each project on its merits and on what comes through. But having said that, this unique area, that would be part of my motion, Mayor, is initiate staff or direct staff to initiate a general plan study of this area. It has taken a shape that's different from 10 years ago, different from when I threw rocks at cows when I was 12. There's still some cows here, I guess, that I've heard some people don't enjoy the... Like the cows, leave the cows. So didn't somebody have manure come through their window from the cows? We'll take it. Okay. So yes, either that'd be fantastic. Either way, that would be my motion. Is move to approve ordinance Z0720, changing the zoning designation and amending the official zoning map of Spanish Fork City for the Del Monte zone change, with the direction to have staff initiate a general plan amendment, or excuse me, a general plan review for the rest of this area that involves ALA and the traffic in the area.
Okay. I've got a motion.
Second.
I've got a second. A motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Gordon. This will be a roll call vote. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scove.
Mayor, I think development, or the roads aren't going to improve until development gets there to build and widen the roads, so I vote aye.
Councilman Argyle.
Nay.
Councilmember Beck.
Nay.
Okay, that passes. Thank you for being here. I appreciate all the effort. Okay, let's move on to Power and Light Master Plan. All right, Jake, go ahead.
I typically have that reaction when I enter the room. I can clear a room easy. So, my name is Jake Tyre. I work for Spanish Fork Power Department. We are here tonight to have you guys adopt this Power Light Master Plan. There's a lot of information in this. Just kind of a quick overview. In 2018, we hired an outside engineering firm to come do a power system analysis on our whole system. So involved with that, they do load projections going out 10 years. They do circuitry projections. They do growth projections. They do a lot of stuff that's included with this. You know, we've been working out of this recently. They give us capital improvement ideas and recommendations. Two of those we are currently doing are like industrial sub. We've added a new substation down there on 3rd West and 10th North. I don't know if you've noticed. And also we are doing the Whitehead substation on 2nd East, kind of down there where the new sewer plant's going to go. You're going to be seeing that down there also. Maybe just to sum this up is when growth happens, we have a plan to get power in the area. Like this area we're talking about, Leland area and that Benjamin exit, we got a plan to get power out there to hopefully provide for that growth that's going to go out there. If you guys have any questions for me regarding this?
As a club now.
Wow.
All with Kelly, buildings and grounds, so.
I won't throw Dale under the bus.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So this is this a public hearing?
Yes, sir.
I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
I'll make a motion to go into public hearing.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon, a second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there anyone here that's left that'd like to talk? Not me. Thank you. About this issue. Seeing none.
Motion to go out of public hearing.
Thank you. I got a motion by Councilman Gordon, second by Councilman Hargal. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Hey, Kier, can you finish your speech for us? You didn't quite go as long as President Trump the other night. So
my God.
I just wondered.
I never said huge, okay?
So do we need a motion on this? This isn't an ordinance, is it? Huh?
I move
I don't-
accept the Power and Light Master Plan as presented.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Mendenhall, a second by Councilman Scopes. Is this a roll call vote? It doesn't show on my deal there.
Yeah, sorry. Let's do a roll call.
All right. Okay. Council member back.
Yay.
Councilman Scopes. Councilman Mendenhall.
She said yay, so I'm going with yay.
Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Thank you. Hey, I like the ayes. Okay.
Mayor, since our last council meeting, we made some changes, included in this the dark sky, and maybe have Jake take 30 seconds to 5 minutes.
What, 30 seconds to 5 minutes?
I'm just going on the Kier ruler.
Golly. That's a pretty wide
Hey, if they're
range.
doing, I'm piling on too.
Never limit that long.
I'll just be real quick. As you know, Nick posted a thing on all our social media that Spanish Fork is now going dark sky. So any fixtures we put up from here forward or replacement will be dark sky compliant. If you have any questions, look that up online. So, thanks.
Hey, I actually know what dark skies are.
That was the same as what I did.
Yeah.
To the point.
Jake,
all the information
Jake,
out
will
there.
you get with Kier and teach him how to do that? Thank you. Hey, I had experience with that in Tucson, Arizona. I built an Applebee's down there, and they said all my uplighting has to be downlighting, because they have a big telescope there on the mountain. So that was my first introduction to dark skies. So, yeah, that's cool. All right. Okay, let's go to new business. Ordinance 13-20, amending Chapter 7.12 of the Spanish Fork Municipal Code relating to the city airport. And Chris has sat here patiently through all that. Proud of you. Anybody going to talk about that?
So the airport ordinance does two pretty simple things, but important. The first is changing the name of the airport to the Spanish Fork Municipal Airport, Woodhouse Field. And so it makes those changes throughout and refers to, removes any reference to Springville.
Thank you.
Second, the board composition was restructured, so now it will be a 7-member board with 1 council member, and then not fewer than 3 Spanish Fork residents and up to 3 airport patrons that live within 25 miles. And that is basically all it does.
Mayor, that's a subtle change in the code to 3 residents.
Yes.
It doesn't say 3 airport residents that are airport patrons. And want to maybe highlight that so you're conscientious of that change, if that's your desire. As staff, we discussed this and felt, the planning commissioners aren't necessarily developers or whatever, but they are citizen review members, and so it's not absolutely necessary that they be an airport patron, although that may be helpful. But to tie your hands and limit your candidates, the pool of your candidates to residents that are airport patrons, we felt like that may be too restrictive. Being a resident may be simply enough for them to lend their voice to the development and issues surrounding that airport. But that if they were going to be a non-resident, that they should be an airport patron. So there is that nexus to the airport that a resident has by simply being a resident of our town. And Chris, if you feel otherwise, certainly feel free to share thoughts about that.
Claire's still on.
Okay. I entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance 13-20, amending chapter 7.12 of the Spanish Fork Municipal Code related to the city airport.
Second.
Got a motion by Councilman Scobes, a second by Councilman Argal. This will be a roll call vote also. Councilman Argal.
Aye.
Councilmember Beck. Aye. Councilman Gordon.
Aye.
Councilman Mendenhall.
Aye.
Councilman Scobes.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. Board appointments. I would like to appoint Joseph Ernest to the Planning and Commission Board. Oh, that's a new one.
I second Stacy's
I
motion.
thought maybe it was in England.
I second her here.
I second her here. I hear.
I got a motion by Councilmember Beck, I think, and a second by Councilman Scobes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Gordo? What?
Back to that consent item.
Oh. Okay, let's go back to E on the consent items, Quiet Valley Purchase Agreement.
So Mayor and Council, we had our meeting about the Quiet Valley. We've had several meetings about that, and I hopefully you're aware of kind of the general project and the purchase agreement, and that's what you're considering tonight, is to approve the purchase agreement. The reason why we removed it from the consent agenda was, as you know, the purchase price is set by the number of units that ultimately gets approved. But as we discovered that there's no floor or minimum purchase price, so if theoretically they brought in a really low density project, it could be a very low purchase price.
1 unit.
That would be low.
So to avoid that, I contacted their attorney, and he agreed that they would not submit a plan that contained fewer than 400 units. So that gives us a pretty good comfort. Applying just the average purchase price, that would be about $375,000 less than we would expect based on that concept, which we know is subject to change, but it gives you an estimate of what the floor would be. So if I was thinking one way to approve it would be approve it subject to the final language being worked out with the city attorney, city manager, and the mayor. If it was acceptable to those three, you could approve the agreement tonight. I don't have the language yet. He's going to draft that and send it to me.
Right. I I'd entertain a motion on that.
Motion to approve Quiet Valley purchase agreement pending
What Vaughn said.
what Vaughn said.
Perfect.
I think it's here.
Got a motion by Councilman Argal. Second. A second by Council Member here, back. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Now, Gordo.
Motion to go into closed session for reasonably imminent litigation and land transaction.
Got a motion by Councilman Gordon,
Second.
second by Councilman Mendenhall. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you for everyone that was here and watching on TV.